This week on the season premiere of BuzzFeed Unsolved, we look into the death of Edgar Allan Poe, a case as mysterious and macabre as the infamous writer's stories.
Jesus. Season premiere. I'm
That's how we're
enthusiastic. I don't know much about Edgar Allan Poe. I'm really bringing the energy this season.
That's good, that's good.
He wrote some fun yarns, a gloomy fella. Didn't know he had an untimely death, quite honestly. I don't know. Seems like a cool guy. They named a football team after him, sorta. They did. The Ravens. I didn't realize that till a few years ago. I was like,
I don't think they named it after...
The Baltimore Ravens.
They did not name that after...
Poe was from Baltimore.
Are you kidding me? Whoa! Whoa! Wait, are you kidding me? That's crazy.
Yes, that's the whole thing.
Holy shit, I just thought they liked Raven. I mean, Raven's a scary bird.
It is.
This is the second time we've talked about like a tortured artist type when we did Old Vincent back in the day.
Was Poe truly tortured?
He was a little tortured, I'd say.
He did kind of look the part.
Yeah, he kind of looks like what you're donning right now, facial hair-wise.
I don't hate to hear it. Don't hate to hear it.
Edgar Allan Poe was born on January 19, 1809, in Boston to a pair of actors, Elizabeth Arnold Poe and David Poe Jr. Within the first 3 years of his life, both his parents were dead, and the wee Poe was brought to Richmond to live with his presumed godfather, John Allan.
How do you get
Right off the bat.
a presumed godfather?
I don't know. People get kind of fast and loose with that, right? What year is it?
This is 1809, 1809.
They got other stuff to worry about. TBs out there. They're like, yeah, so we definitely will pick a godfather, don't worry about it. Uh-oh, we're dead now.
In 1826, Poe enrolled at the University of Virginia, where he was an excellent student. Though John Allan was a wealthy tobacco merchant, he was also a tightwad who sent Poe to school with less than a third of the money needed. To try to make up for the shortfall, Poe started gambling. As you might expect, this strategy didn't quite pay off, and by the end of his first term, Poe was so poor he was burning his furniture to stay warm.
I think it's okay that John Allan wasn't just handing him piles of money. What does he want?
I mean, you could hand him the adequate amount.
No, make him work for it, make him strong.
Jesus Christ.
Well, I mean, get him out there, get him working, get him burning his own furniture.
I agree with you.
Teach him a few lessons.
The experience of losing both of his parents probably didn't make him strong enough.
I could walk back on some of this. Okay, I see what you're saying.
At this time, Allan was actually angry at the young student for gambling, while Poe was likewise upset at his godfather for refusing to contribute more to his education. With no other options, Poe was forced to drop out of school. Thus began a tumultuous time in Poe's life. Upon returning to Richmond, Poe discovered his fiancée, Elmira Shelton, had become engaged to another man. Despairing, Poe moved to Boston and enlisted in the U.S. Army to support himself so he could write. His godfather, however, then bought Poe's way out of the military, which was apparently something you could do. Poe then enrolled in West Point, only to be expelled 8 months later after making himself absent from all drills and classes for a week. With nowhere to go, Poe attempted to seek out his father's relatives in Baltimore, where he was promptly robbed by one of his cousins.
Bad cousin. That's rough.
This guy is being followed by a dark cloud.
Yeah.
It just seems like.
What do you do when life throws curveballs at you?
I don't know. Have a nice cry.
You film a gaunt season of BuzzFeed Unsolved Supernatural.
I have a nice
is what
cry.
I regard.
I make BuzzFeed Unsolved. That's what I do.
Finally, Poe fell into the care of his Aunt Maria Clem and established some semblance of stability. Poe started to publish poems. Around the time when he moved in with his aunt, Poe also began publishing short stories, one of which won a contest that grew his notoriety and led to an editorial position at the Southern Literary Messenger in Richmond.
Gotta feel good, right?
Yeah.
Win a contest? If all this happened to me, my life is just the pits, and then I won a contest? I'd be like, back on top.
It still feels like the scales have not tipped. But
Yeah, but this is the beginning.
it is
you
the
know?
beginning. It's the beginning.
This is a little pebble on the scale.
It's true. Night's darkest before the dawn.
Poe's luck was finally turning around. In addition to his newfound career traction, Poe had fallen in love with a girl named Virginia. Grossly, Virginia was his cousin. Even grosslier, Virginia was half his age. Despite these circumstances, Poe and Virginia married in Richmond in 1835 when Poe was 27 and Virginia was 13.
Can I say?
Yeah.
Can't be doing that.
Obviously, But it is a thing of the times.
You can't be doing that.
I mean, you see what I'm saying, though, right? It's
Very easy to condemn from our vantage point in history, and so we do condemn wholeheartedly.
While their marriage was said to have been a happy one, it was also largely marked by money troubles.
You telling me she wasn't out there in the
I mean,
raking in the dollars as a
At 13,
secretary somewhere or something?
turning in her finger paintings to City Hall,
Yeah.
getting a nice little quarter.
Poe continued moving about the eastern seaboard, piecing together different writing jobs, but finding it nearly impossible to make an adequate living. When his first collection of short stories, Tales of the Grotesque and Arabesque, which contained his famous story, The Fall of the House of Usher, was first published in 1840, Poe's pay wasn't even in money, but instead 25 copies of his own book. 5 years later, in 1845, the New York Mirror published Poe's poem, The Raven, which catapulted him to national acclaim.
5 years later?
5 years later.
Rough.
That's 5 years.
5 years ago, we started working at BuzzFeed.
I know. Imagine, or even 5 years later, imagine all we have to show for it is your video dogs watching TV for the first time.
It's a classic.
A copy of it, an MPEG.
It's a classic. I don't know why that is glued to every internet biography of me.
Because it's a
But it's
masterpiece.
always like, Shane Madej, a producer of Dogs Watch Television for the first time. It is a good video, for the record. Because those dogs do watch TV.
And that's all you have is that MOV file for 5 years. That's all you have to show for it. No money,
Not bad.
just a copy of the video.
A cat comes on screen and they're like,
For a brief period, Poe was finally living relatively comfortably. In the life of Edgar Allan Poe, however, tragedy was never far off. In the winter of 1847, Virginia died of tuberculosis at age 24. Poe was devastated, and literary critics assumed that Poe himself would be dead before long. In 2 years' time, they'd be proven right. By 1849, Poe was said to have embarked on a wild spree, presumably relating to alcohol abuse. By the summer, however, he'd made his way back to sobriety, back to Richmond, and back to his first fiancée, Elmira Shelton.
so is he going back to her now with like a copy of The Raven? Be like, how about this now, huh?
Would you give Elmira a second chance?
No.
You wouldn't?
No!
You don't believe in the capacity to forgive?
I would forgive, but I wouldn't forget.
They were soon and once again engaged, with plans to marry after Poe returned from some business in Philadelphia. On September 27th, Poe left Richmond by steamer, stopping the next day in Baltimore. For the next 5 days, Poe's whereabouts are unknown.
Easy to disappear back then, though, is the thing. Not hard.
Yes, it is easy. It was easier to disappear.
Nowadays, we got this surveillance.
surveillance state,
You know,
yeah,
You go
yeah.
to get your money out of the ATM, and they. I don't care. I'm on the internet, you know. Everybody sees
You're
me.
on famousbirthdays.com.
That's right. Where it says that I am the producer of
Dogs
Watch
watching
Television.
There it is. We're back.
On October 3rd, Poe was found by an employee of the Baltimore Sun, Joseph W. Walker, delirious, immobile, and dressed in shabby clothing. Poe was discovered in a gutter outside of a public house that was being used as a polling place.
What do you think about polls being in bars? Do you think that helps voter turnout?
Yeah, that's actually not a bad idea.
It is, right? I thought that was a pretty good idea, too.
It's pretty good. You got to get the kids out there. Oh my God. Register to vote.
This is a good time to say
Can we do
that.
that right
Yeah,
now?
we can do
I
that
know.
right
Look,
now.
be registered to vote. Talk to your friends about registering to vote. Scream at them.
And celebrate with a nice brewski.
Yeah,
If you're of
if
age.
you're
If you're
21.
over 21. Think
It's
that'd
a Poe essay.
Rapping at death's chamber door, Poe was taken to Washington College Hospital that afternoon. Assumed to be drunk, the weak and weary Poe was brought to a special room reserved for patients ill from intoxication. Poe never fully regained consciousness to be able to detail what had happened to him. Dr. John J. Moran wrote to Poe's aunt/mother-in-law, Maria Clem, that Poe's last days were filled with, quote, vacant convers with spectral and imaginary objects on the walls. His face was pale and his whole person drenched in perspiration, end quote. On October 7th, 5 hours past midnight dreary, at the age of 40, Edgar Allan Poe died. Some reports claiming he used his last breath to calmly say, quote, Lord help my poor soul, end quote. The official cause of death was phrenitis, or brain swelling. Poe was buried in a Baltimore graveyard 2 days later in an unmarked grave with little ceremony and nothing more.
It's a sad story, and hopefully that doesn't happen to any of us or the people we care about. I would hate to sweat for that long.
Which part? Not getting married or dying in a gutter? Or getting buried in an unmarked grave? All of the above?
Sure. Yeah, all of them. Yeah. I mean, if you don't want to get married, live your life. If maybe you don't have a significant other, it's not the end of the world. Find some hobbies. Just trying to make everybody feel good out there.
With Poe unable to explain what happened while in the hospital and no autopsy ever performed, theories abound regarding what happened to the famous Gothic writer. Today, we're going to address some of the most interesting ones. So without further ado, let's get into the theories. Our first theory is that Edgar Allan Poe died of some alcohol-related syndrome, such as dipsomania, alcohol dehydrogenase, or delirium tremens. Poe had a problem with alcohol.
Yeah. Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Not only did he possibly struggle with alcoholism, but it appears he was genetically predisposed to not be able to handle booze. According to Chris Sempner, curator of the Poe Museum, quote, "It has been documented that after a glass of wine, he was staggering drunk. His sister had the same problem. It seems to be something hereditary," end quote. Some say phrenitis may have been a common euphemism to politely attribute a death to alcohol. A few months before his death, Poe had a traumatic experience after becoming ill from drinking in Richmond. According to biographer Susan Archer Tiley Weiss, Poe's doctor apparently warned him that, quote, "another such attack would prove fatal," end quote. This may have contributed to him becoming an active and vocal member of the temperance movement for the months leading up to his demise. If Poe had fallen off the wagon during his 5-day disappearance, that could have explained the disheveled and terminal state when he was found.
Temperance was dumb as hell. Can I say that?
Why is that?
You gotta be, just because you don't like a chili boy here and there, you gotta go tell other people how to live their lives? I don't like heroin.
I don't think it's them getting on.
What'd you say?
What are you? Wait, what?
I mean, I don't want.
Why did
when
you
I say I don't like heroin, that doesn't mean.
Why did you have to
not
point
for
that
me.
out? How much heroin have you done today?
None. I don't.
Who are you trying to convince here?
I don't enjoy this joke.
Our second theory is that Poe was fatally beaten, perhaps after drinking. Since Poe would become inebriated after only one drink, he would have been an easy target for ruffians. Indeed, if Poe was beaten and robbed, that would explain his shabby state of dress, as Poe hadn't been known to wear ragged, cheap, ill-fitting clothes. There are even a couple theories that a potential beating would have been because of a woman. Biographer E. Oak Smith wrote in an 1867 article, quote, "At the instigation of a woman who considered herself injured by him, Poe was cruelly beaten, blow upon blow, by a ruffian who knew of no better mode of avenging supposed injuries. It is well known that a brain fever followed," end quote. In author John Evangelist Walsh's book from 2000, he posited that the brothers of Poe's again fiancée, Elmira Shelton, drugged Poe with alcohol and beat him to death. According to Walsh, Shelton's 3 brothers had warned Poe against marrying their sister. Walsh suggests that Poe had made it to Philadelphia, where he was ambushed by Shelton's brothers. Poe would have then disguised himself in shabby clothing and gone into hiding. Walsh contends that when Poe tried to sneak back to Richmond, Shelton's brothers would have found him in Baltimore, beaten him, and drugged him with alcohol, knowing it would have made him deathly ill.
This meek, well-dressed man who wears cloaks. If you wanted him dead, you didn't have to get it. He was like a weird little spindly man with a head the size of a pumpkin. You've seen him. Or maybe I'm just thinking of the Funko Pops.
Would you not want him?
Would I not want what?
Poe, as a brother-in-law.
No, I wouldn't. He's a weird dour man. I would not beat him to death.
I can't even imagine you throwing a punch.
No, me neither. If I'm ever gonna throw a punch.
I could only imagine you like backhanding somebody.
No.
like a lord.
It would be mid-conversation, and I'd maybe set it up a little bit. Like there's a great line from the OC where Ryan,
Yes.
the main character who's like from the rough and tumble parts of,
Yeah.
he says, "You know what I like about rich kids?" And the rich kid says, he's like, "Huh?" He goes, "Poof, nothing." And he walks away. That's what I do, baby. But I might kiss my fist first. I might be like,
So your only fight that you've ever imagined is you sucker punching someone?
Yeah, oh, I'm a sucker puncher, all right. I'm a coward, baby.
This took a turn.
I would punch and
what
I'd
is
run.
happening?
I'd run real fast.
Oh my God, I got you.
Then I'd get on a train and I'd move to a different city and I'd change my name.
Our third theory is Edgar Allan Poe was the victim of cooping, a violent form of voter fraud that was extremely common in Baltimore at the time. Cooping was when gangs would kidnap a victim and force him to vote multiple times in a variety of disguises.
Strange.
That's
Strange when crimes were like this.
just walking in there with a little Groucho Marx mustache.
Yeah, very odd.
Yeah, it's weird. It's a weird time.
Also, it's a crime, and yet these people need to have some sort of trunk full of disguises.
They're walking around with a carrot top truck.
Like hardened criminals be like, "We got you now. Put on this feather boa."
Okay, now the pink number. Put that
The
on.
pink.
Put that one on.
That one with the spaghetti
Could
straps. I
you,
like that.
Could you audition those glasses? I don't know if that frame fits.
On, off, glass.
You know what? Let's go with the other
Funny
one.
little
I
top
was
hat.
I was right the first time I overthought it.
This was good. This was good character work for us. Let's keep going.
This theory makes a lot of sense, as it explains why Poe was not in his normal clothes and why he was found outside of a polling place. During this time, voters were often given some alcohol after voting as a celebration. Because of Poe's genetic sensitivity to alcohol, if he had been forced to vote several times, thus having to drink multiple drinks, it could have explained the drunken stupor he was discovered in. Biographer J.H. Ingram during the late 1870s received several letters that caused him to believe this was how Poe met his demise. A member of the faculty at Johns Hopkins, William Hand Brown, wrote Ingram saying, quote, "The general belief here is that Poe was seized by one of these gangs, cooped, stupefied with liquor, dragged out and voted, and then turned adrift to die." End quote.
If you're gonna kidnap someone to coop them,
Yes.
wouldn't you want to? I don't know how recognizable he was, but maybe don't pick
Edgar
a
Allan
famous
Poe.
author.
Yeah, I don't think these people were beating up Edgar Allan Poe and then one of them stopped midway and was like, "Wait a second, this dude wrote The Raven."
This guy wrote Fall of the House of Usher. Haven't you guys ever read that? It's incredible.
It's a beautiful story. You know what? I'm sorry, man. Get up.
We love your prose.
Yeah.
We're sorry about
We're really
this.
good. We'll take it easy. I don't think that's what happened. I think it was just he was a guy.
Yeah, okay.
Our final theory is that Edgar Allan Poe died as the result of a brain tumor, which could have explained his odd behavior in the days leading up to his death. Though Poe was buried in an unmarked grave 2 days after he died, 26 years later, a statue was erected to honor his gravesite, during which his coffin was dug up so his remains could be exhumed. I use the term honor loosely, as the marker lists his birthday as January 20th, the day after Poe was actually born.
They tried to remedy their mistake from before with the unmarked grave, and then they
Beefed
they
it.
beefed it real hard.
Beefed it. Literally etching it in stone. You don't want to double check that?
I guess not.
Imagine if your headstone said like, Ryan Bergara, loving wife.
I mean, yeah, sure.
You
I
wouldn't
guess.
care?
Yeah, I mean, I'm dead, so.
Yeah, I mean, you know my outlook on things. It's like, whatever. Leave me in the street for the dogs to pick at my bones.
That's another thing too. I've always wondered with graves, like when people leave things at the grave, like flowers or even like food or things that they liked.
Yeah.
If you die, isn't your grave like one of the last places you'd want to go check out?
I mean, that's where your body is. Maybe your spirit
I
was. I mean,
suppose.
a Dia de los Muertos. It's like the cemeteries become like a fun.
That is true.
I saw Coco.
It's just I don't want to hang out at a cemetery if I'm coming back to Earth to
But the
check
cemetery
things
should
out.
be a happy place. Let's make
Maybe.
them happy places.
I'm just saying that most times ghosts haunt the house that they were in or where they died. They don't
or
go
wherever's convenient for the story. Yeah, I know.
there. Rip that mustache off your face.
I'd love to see you try.
Understandably, Poe's coffin and corpse were in terrible condition. As workers tried to move the coffin, it fell apart, spilling Poe's remains.
This guy can't catch a break.
This is comical at this point. Like
It's what you get for marrying your 13-year-old cousin.
Jesus, man, you can't say that.
I can't
Man,
say
you
it.
can't
Oh,
say
I
that.
can't say that?
I don't know if that's fair.
You can't say that.
I don't think it's fair.
How dare you judge him for marrying his 13-year-old
It was
cousin?
historically accepted at the time.
I don't care.
I
judge thee.
I could say that without condoning it.
I judge.
Workers noted that there was a mass rolling around inside the poet's skull. At the time, news articles reported it was Poe's brain, quote, dried and hardened in the skull, end quote, claiming, quote, the cerebral mass evidenced no sign of disintegration or decay, though, of course, it is somewhat diminished, end quote.
Is that what happens to the brain?
I have no idea.
That's Gnarly, man.
I do not think the brain hardens into a funny little ball. I don't think that's what happens.
Wouldn't it be funny if a funny little mouse came out?
I guess.
However, if there truly was a mass remaining in Poe's skull, it is unlikely to have been his brain. Soft brain tissue would have been some of the first to decay after Poe's death. It is much more likely any mass would have been a tumor, which could have calcified and hardened after the death. Expert testimony also suggests Poe had been told earlier in his life by a doctor that he believed Poe had a lesion on his brain that explained his adverse reaction to alcohol.
Well, I will say that the tumor does explain a lot of things. It makes things make more sense because like all of the sobering up and all that stuff, it was all nullified by the fact that he just had a tumor. That's why he wasn't getting any.
I mean, they also said he was talking to specters in his final hour. It could have explained some.
We talk to specters all the time.
Could explain some hallucinations or things that might not actually be there.
Well, his hallucinations weren't caught on camera.
His what?
His hallucinations weren't caught on camera.
Hallucinations? You idiot.
Unbelievable. This is not the season to talk about ghosts. Also, fuck you.
As you may have noticed, none of our theories rules out the others. Edgar Allan Poe may very well have been beaten and kidnapped in a cooping scheme, sent to a stupor with alcohol after voting, and unable to recover due to a brain tumor, or any combination thereof.
Wow, that's fun. I mean, sad, but have we ever had
A theory, a case where the theories kind of serve as like a Mad Lib of sorts?
or like, yeah, where all theories are possible, but could also all have contributed.
Happened at the same time?
Yeah, interesting.
Other theories, such as rabies, the flu, carbon monoxide poisoning, syphilis, epilepsy, cholera, and many others have also been posited. Though Poe was beginning to attract the literary credit he deserved, he could not have known the impact his Gothic tales of the macabre and mysterious would have, or that an annual prize for excellence in mystery, the Edgar Award, would be named after him, cementing his legacy evermore. With no autopsy and no official death certificate ever found, what caused the death of Edgar Allan Poe, one of America's most famous authors and poets, will likely remain unsolved.
I will say the clothes thing does make me kind of give a little bit more credence to the cooping theory, in the sense that that involved disguises. Though you could also say the clothes were the result of getting into a drunk altercation and people robbing him.
But also, who's keeping tabs on which clothes he owns?
Well, it was that.
Maybe he had some raggedy ones that he never wore that often and was like, oh, I'll take these traveling.
I feel like if you showed up to work one day in raggedy, ill-fitting clothes, well, actually, that would be kind of conducive to who you are right now. Because, I mean, you said yourself, your goal in your 30s is to look weird.
It is.
So actually, that was a bad example. But anybody else that's normal, it would be weird if they all of a sudden showed up in things that didn't make sense.
I'm different.
I guess it's just unsolved.
I guess so.
This week on BuzzFeed Unsolved, we sift through the case of the Lady of the Dunes, a murder mystery from Cape Cod with theories that stretch from the Boston Mafia to Hollywood. Jesus Christ.
What?
It's just the turtleneck, the jacket. You just went in for a slow sip for your coffee. It was insufferable.
I'm
the whole
intrigued.
thing.
I've never been to Cape Cod. I don't know much about it other than, what is it, like some Gatsby bullshit going on?
It's like a party town. People go there to bang it out. You could probably catch cod there.
Yeah.
And hell, I might bring a cape.
But here's the thing. You put a bunch of rich people together, oh, there's gonna be some murder. All rich people are murderers.
What's fancy coming from you and your silk turtleneck here?
$11 on Amazon.com. Anyway, yes, safe to say all rich people are murderers.
I don't think that's what this case is
Okay,
about, nor do
agree
I
to
think
disagree.
that's a factual statement.
Agree to disagree.
Okay, yep, drink your coffee. Drink it, go ahead. Oh, you son of a... All right, Leo, let's just get into this.
On July 26, 1974, 12-year-old Leslie Metcalf was returning from the beach in Provincetown, Massachusetts with her family in the late afternoon. A local dog had followed them, and when it took off barking, Leslie decided to run ahead of her parents and follow.
First off, you got any guesses what that dog was barking at?
I don't know. I don't like dogs. I was running for exercise, and a rotten Dalmatian jumped right up against a fence and started growling for no reason, just because I was passing. I'm a nice man.
Well, they do hate squirrels. Do you think he thought there was a little bushy squirrel tail on your face?
No, it was dark out. I worry about this. If I ever have kids, them running away, then you see parents with their kids on leashes, and you're like, well, that's wrong.
Yeah.
But the more I think about it, I'm like, maybe put your kids on a leash.
Spent that whole time, didn't even answer the question.
What was the dog barking at?
That was the
Anything. Dogs bark at
All right,
anything.
that would have been an
Dogs
acceptable.
bark at mailman. Dogs bark at a bird in a tree.
Anything
at a
would have
rock
been an
that-
acceptable answer. You'd be a horrible contestant on Family Feud.
In the dunes at Race Point Beach, amongst the scrub pines a mile east of a ranger station, Leslie discovered the decomposing body of a naked woman, approximately 5 feet, 6.5 inches tall, 145 pounds, between 20 and 40 years old, lying on one side of a beach towel, with her head on top of a folded pair of jeans and a blue bandana. It's estimated the body had been lying there anywhere from 10 days to 3 weeks before being discovered. Her head had been crushed on the left side, and she had been almost entirely decapitated. While no weapons were found, it's believed that something akin to a military entrenching tool was used to nearly sever the head. Also noticeably absent from the corpse were the victim's hands, presumably removed to avoid identification via fingerprints.
Well, that's a lot.
I will say that when you look at the details of the crime scene, it would seem that this was done by somebody who wasn't, I guess, like an amateur. Also insane that it had been there for 10 days to 3 weeks.
It's a long time. The body goes through some stuff.
But even from beyond that, like beyond the state of the body when you find it, 10 days to 3 weeks is a long time for it not to be discovered.
But out there on the dunes, man.
It's wide, it's expansive, though it is only a mile away from the ranger station. It would suggest that maybe the killer is a little bit more ballsy than would let on.
Or they just know that the ranger is a doofus who's not good at their job.
The violent state in which the body was left obviously suggested murder, and with no apparent sign of a struggle at the time, authorities believed that the unidentified victim would have known her murderer. Some of the only evidence of another person being around were size 10 footprints that indicated a heavy person who was running, and Provincetown Police Chief Jimmy Meads said the killer likely drove the victim to the dune in a four-wheel drive sand vehicle to sunbathe.
It's interesting to me that the footprints lasted that long.
Could have also been someone who just stumbled upon the body and was like, you know what?
We run into this a lot,
I don't know
though.
about this.
If you saw a body, would you call it in?
Yes, I would.
You have to, right?
I would.
Yeah.
But I can understand where if, let's say you got a warrant out, maybe you didn't pay your taxes, you stumble upon a body, you don't want to invite any of that. It's probably safer to walk away sometimes.
You do usually paint yourself as suspect number one when you call in something.
Yeah.
Which isn't that fair.
So you stumble upon this body. What's your tone when you tell them?
Hey, how's it going? I just,
Oh, buddy.
Well, you can't sell too much panic in the voice.
How's it going?
I found a body out on the beach. We should probably, you should come out here and pick it up.
Send out the paddy wagon.
Send out your boys. My kids play on this beach.
Oh, I didn't know you had kids in this scenario. Were you lying about that to them? Because that's,
Oh shit, would I be?
you're lying now.
Oh, now they have that on tape.
My kids play on this beach.
And now those cuffs are gonna be on my wrists in probably a day's time.
Yeah.
Shit.
It'd be-
I just got arrested. This is why people don't call it in. I just got arrested.
Despite using bloodhounds, studying missing persons bulletins, scouring the registers of local lodgings, and looking into anyone who had a permit to bring their vehicle into the area, police turned up nothing. Margie Childs, a Provincetown local, noted in 2019 that the fact that no one could identify the Lady of the Dunes in the tight-knit community was very strange. In their attempt to ID the victim, police turned to the victim's extensive dental work, worth thousands of dollars at the time, and noted to be of New York style. Details of the dental work were sent to every dentist in Massachusetts, published in 2 dental journals, and distributed to organizations like the FBI and Interpol. No one came forward recognizing the work.
So they can't identify the victim. They looked at the dental work, which is, I guess, of New York
Some
style.
Big Apple choppers.
As a Chicago guy, you more into deep dish dental.
Did you have that like in your notes app last night? Yeah,
I did.
all right.
Nailed it.
Weird. So no one even in the community is missing. Yeah, we know. You did it. So no. Yep. So yeah. Huh?
Good.
So no one in the community is even missing.
No. Now, the dental work is interesting to me because that is a fair amount of work being done. So obviously this person is not somebody that just wandered in off the street.
When they say New York, New York dentistry. Does
I have no idea what the hell
that just means fancy? Like, this was clearly done by, not your country bumpkin dentist.
I have no idea. My dad's a dentist himself. Never heard him refer to California dentistry.
The body was exhumed in 1980, so blood samples could be taken and an approximation of the victim's face could be molded from the skull. Photos of the resulting bust were sent around the country in the hopes that someone would recognize it. No identification resulted. 20 years later, in 2000, the body was exhumed again, when a bone fragment was taken to test a potential lead. That again turned up nothing. In 2013, the body was exhumed for a third time to obtain even more DNA. Still, nothing has produced a positive identity for the Lady of the Dunes.
This has been hanging over the community for decades now.
Yeah, they did 3 exhumations. Exhumations? That's a word, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did 3 of them. And still, after
That's a
all
lot.
that, for that to produce no kind of DNA evidence of like who this person is, it's kind of insane to me because 1974 is not that long ago.
No.
You would think that DNA would be fresh enough that you could figure out this person's identity.
Oh, just also weird that nobody's like, hey, I don't know where my friend is.
Which makes you think this person could be off the grid in sorts.
Yeah, there is a lot of shady shit out there.
With an unidentified murderer and an unidentified corpse, it's time to launch into theories. Our first theory is about the victim's identity and comes from the Tumblr of Joe Hill, the son of Stephen King.
Is this the first time Tumblr has played
This is
into...
the first time Tumblr has made an appearance.
The Tumblr crowd is such a vocal fan base of our show.
They're very supportive of Unsolved. They always have been. That being said, I'm pretty sure this Tumblr user is not. But I could be wrong. He's the son of Stephen King, so maybe.
Well, I'll tell you, if anyone knows horror, it's going to be the son of Stephen King.
Hill's interest in the Lady of the Dunes was sparked after reading Deborah Halber's book, The Skeleton Crew: How Amateur Sleuths Are Solving America's Coldest Cases. About an hour into a 40th anniversary screening of Steven Spielberg's classic film Jaws, Hill spotted an extra with a face that looked eerily familiar. The face reminded him of the composite drawings of the Lady of the Dunes. The extra appears in jeans and a blue bandana, the same clothing found with the Lady of the Dunes. While this may at first sound like a simple coincidence of wardrobe, Jaws was filmed on the Cape during the summer of 1974, meaning the scene in question may have been filmed weeks or days before her death. An Entertainment Weekly reporter contacted Universal about the identity of the extra, but they could not locate a record, and the casting director had already died. Hill admits his theory could be bogus, but says, quote, "If nothing else, it's a pretty good little ghost story," end quote.
That's some good lore. It does look similar to the composite. It would potentially explain her being an outsider.
Stevie Spielberg shows up in town, it's going to attract people from out of town that want to be a part of the magic. He wasn't a big director at that point, so the security around that probably
Lax.
wasn't as, stringent.
Yeah.
Also, kind of crazy that that set was so loosey-goosey that they don't even have notes of the names of all the extras.
I wonder if that's because it was just such a long, drawn-out debacle that they just sort of, a lot of that got lost in the shuffle.
Or she did truly sneak onto the set,
Yeah.
and when they were shooting, just walked into the shot. Also, it fits the timeline, fits the location. She kind of looks like the person. Frankly, Joe Hill, I think you've done it.
Yeah.
Let's just end the episode there.
Well, we can't.
Okay, let's move on then.
For our next theory, we move from movie monster to real-life mobster, Whitey Bulger. Whitey Bulger, you may recall, was the infamous Boston mob leader who was beaten to death in prison while serving 2 life sentences for 11 convicted murders, and it's widely thought he was responsible for many more. In 2015, a woman named Sandra Lee, who suggested her family was close with Bulger at the time of the murder and even called him Uncle Jimmy, told a reporter that the Lady of the Dunes bore a striking resemblance to one of Whitey's alleged murders. In particular, Lee believes the method of disposal and attempts to avoid identification of the body are strikingly similar to the murder of Debbie Davis. In Davis's case, the victim's teeth were removed, presumably in an attempt to avoid identification. Davis was strangled to death, and the Lady of the Dunes showed signs of strangulation. Davis's hands, however, were not removed, and the Lady of the Dunes' teeth were left in place. Bulger has never been officially associated with the case as a subject. Lee also claims to remember seeing Whitey in Provincetown at the time of the Lady of the Dunes' murder. What's more, for some reason, Lee has also claimed that when she was 9 years old, she discovered the unidentified body on the morning of July 26, 1974, before Leslie Metcalf, but did not alert authorities.
I was starting to see what she was selling there for a second, but then she mentions that she saw the body and didn't identify it, which makes her kind of just seem like a kid making up a tall tale.
Is she the one who also saw Whitey in town?
Yes, that's what she says. This is a word-of-mouth theory here. However, Debbie Davis also was found near a shoreline, so there's similarity there, but like I said, the hands weren't cut off.
But teeth removed. So still care taken to mask the identity in some way.
Whitey Bulger does fit the description of the professional that I was suggesting earlier, that this didn't seem like an amateur killing or perhaps even a crime of passion.
Yeah. I don't know enough about him to really peg him for this, but I guess all we really need to know is that he was a vicious murderer.
True. So that's why, like, if we're theorizing that he may have murdered somebody else, I don't really feel too bad about it.
Our third theory is that serial killer Haddon Clark, who is currently serving 70 years in prison for theft and the murder of 2 women, was responsible for the murder. This theory was first presented by Haddon Clark. Speaking with journalist and former police officer Alec Wilkinson, Clark claimed that while staying with his grandfather on Cape Cod in 1974, he lured a woman into the dunes, where he struck her in the head with a surf-casting fishing rod. He claimed he then retrieved a saw from his truck and removed her hands, using some of her fingers as fishing bait and burying the hands elsewhere. Casting doubt on Clark's claims is the fact that the details he provided about the murder were featured in newspaper articles. Clark also has a history of claiming involvement in other murders that never checked out.
Bullshit. What a liar.
Yeah, don't even give him the satisfaction.
Nah.
We should just move to the next
Yeah.
one. Let's just swipe away.
Go to hell, dude.
Our final theory holds that the Lady of the Dunes was herself a criminal. The fact that her hands were removed could suggest that the murderer knew the victim's fingerprints would be on file somewhere. This led authorities to suspect the lady could be Rory Jean Kessinger. Kessinger had a criminal history of bank robberies and attempting to shoot police, including once in a hospital with the officer's own gun. When the Lady of the Dunes was discovered, Kessinger had recently escaped from Plymouth County Jail, just across Cape Cod Bay from Provincetown. While awaiting trial, someone was able to get Kessinger a hacksaw blade, which she used to free herself. In classic escapee fashion, she used tethered bed sheets to rappel out of a window and was met by a car that drove her away.
I'm a guard at the prison.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be making sure nobody gets out. I'm up there on the little tower. I swing the spotlight because I hear a commotion. I see a woman crawling down the side of the building. I go to sound the alarm, and then suddenly I put it down. I'm so impressed with this lady. Is she a monster? Is she bad?
I mean, she did attempt to shoot a police officer with his own gun.
What are you gonna do?
Not that. That's what you're gonna do.
But I'm so charmed by her savviness.
She just tied bed sheets together. That's like some
It's
fairy
cool.
tale shit. That's not even creative.
And it worked. Most people would probably scoff at that and say, well, that's only in cartoons. Nobody does this.
Yeah, but I think if you're sitting around in a locked cell long enough, you'll think of anything.
Yeah, and you ought to. I mean, assuming you're
So
a
there's
cool
nothing-
lady like this.
there's
What did she do?
nothing-
She just robbed some banks?
And attempted to
Baller.
shoot.
Well, the cop was, probably being mean to her.
It said the sculptural bust made of the Lady of the Dunes after the 1980 exhumation had a striking resemblance to Kessinger. In the late 90s, authorities tracked down Kessinger's mother, who agreed to give a saliva sample to see if her DNA meant she was the mother of the victim. The theory was so strong that it's what led to the body being exhumed again in 2000. Both tests failed in determining whether it was a match, which led to another test in 2002 that proved conclusively that there was no match between Kessinger and the Lady of the Dunes.
What, but did she just disappear then?
Yeah, and I think,
So she may be,
I mean, that's mission accomplished for someone
she
who
may be out
escapes
there.
prison. You
She
know?
actually may be watching this video and hearing me lavish praise upon
This
her.
is the first theory that we've had that has, I guess, a somewhat happy ending. Because
Maybe.
if you escape prison, the goal is to not be caught.
Yeah.
And if we found out the Lady of the Dunes was her, she got got.
Yeah, if you're watching this episode, don't be tweeting like, that lady's so cool, because then the law's going to remember like, oh yeah, she escaped.
Yeah,
They're
that's
going to be
true.
going after her, so just keep quiet about it.
This case has been closely followed in the more than 45 years since Leslie Metcalf discovered the Lady of the Dunes, resulting in numerous other theories with varying degrees of plausibility. In the 1980s, a psychic told Provincetown Police Chief Jimmy Meads that the victim was a Canadian nurse named either Carolyn or Marilyn O'Leary. While the word of a psychic may not seem like enough to merit further scrutiny, another person had also reported the victim to be an American nurse named Carolyn O'Leary, who had gone missing. Upon investigation, authorities found O'Leary to be very much alive.
Great job, psychics. What a shock.
What do you think about that investigative technique?
I mean, I think all psychics are bullshit, so
But
I don't care.
I will say that there has to be at least one case that a psychic actually solved. Otherwise, why would we keep using them?
No one's using them. I think they're just like, you must believe me, and then some dipshit at the station is like, I think we should hear this lady out.
Despite over 4 decades of dead ends, investigations continue. According to journalist Mary Ann Bragg, after 3 exhumations, authorities currently have the skull, ribs, the left scapula, the right scapula, a tissue sample of a leg, and hair samples in their possession. Cape officials are looking into a new method for identifying the body using DNA evidence and genealogy. DAs from California who worked on the Golden State Killer case, which was finally solved using genealogy records, have been brought over to look into the case. There's even a Twitter account dedicated to discovering the identity of the Lady of the Dunes. Still, an answer is anything but guaranteed. Prior to his death in 2011, Police Chief Meads stated that the only way to solve the case would be if someone on their deathbed wanted to clear their conscience before passing. Without that, it appears the identity of the Lady of the Dunes, as well as her murderer, will remain unsolved.
Not so.
Yeah, it's a crazy case. I gotta say, after all those theories, and this is not just because I love the film Jaws, I do think it's actually a very interesting theory.
It is interesting, but at the same time, I don't know if there's enough there.
Maybe.
And frankly, I'd like to enjoy the film Jaws without every time watching it being like, it's the Lady of the Dunes.
The thing about the theory, though, is it doesn't solve the case. It just solves the identity of her. It doesn't have any kind of bearing towards who the criminal or the killer is.
Yes, but once you figure out the identity, then
You could start opening up a network.
yeah, quite a prominent one, I would say.
That is true. Well, we've once again failed.
Thoroughly upsetting story with no conclusion.
You know what? The turtleneck grew on me.
Thank you. How about that mustache?
No. This week on BuzzFeed Unsolved, we look into the death of 20s and 30s Hollywood starlet Thelma Todd, another murder in her own backyard.
Oh, there's some gravitas there.
It's just sad.
Hollywood was just silent films then.
A lot of silent slapstick and then a lot of murdering going on behind
Well,
the
the
scenes.
city was figuring itself out, you know?
And
Do we
everyone
want
was
to be
on
a
drugs,
movie
too.
town? We want to be a murder town? And in
drug
the end,
town.
it figured out, let's do it all.
20s and 30s crime, you got the old 20s and 30s mustache on your face. Shall we jump into the case file?
Let's do it.
Let's get into it.
In 1906, Thelma Alice Todd was born in Lawrence, Massachusetts. She trained to become a school teacher while doing some modeling on the side, and in 1925 won the title of Miss Massachusetts. After her win, Paramount Pictures signed Todd to a 1-year contract that set her Hollywood career in motion. Over the next decade, Todd made a name for herself as a talented comedic actress, playing leads in films with the Marx Brothers, Laurel and Hardy, and Zazu Pitts. Her rise in Hollywood, however, was no walk in the park. One of Todd's early contracts involved a clause that specified her weight at the time of signing, 122 pounds, and that if she gained more than 3 or lost more than 6 pounds from that mark, the contract could be terminated. Hollywood's concern with her weight resulted in Todd becoming addicted to diet pills.
Not good.
It's bad. Don't do it. Don't just eat body positivity. I got it out there. Hey,
You nailed it.
hey, love your body every day. Wake up, smile,
That's right.
wink at yourself in the mirror. Grow a mustache if you gotta.
Between 1932 and 1934, Todd was married to agent Pat DeSico, a union which could hardly be described as happy. When Todd filed for divorce, she cited the reason as, quote, grievous mental and physical suffering, end quote. Todd also found herself fighting against typical Hollywood casting couch situations, even at the threat of being blacklisted. She refused to entertain producers at parties and was outspoken about her experiences. Nevertheless, Todd was known as a fun-loving party girl, extremely popular in the LA social circuit, carrying on multiple love affairs with men, and often overheard ordering her signature drink, 3 Fingers of Rye.
3 Fingers of Rye, that's a lot.
Holy moly. I drink 3 Fingers of Rye. I'm on the roof.
Fiddling?
Sure.
Just for context,
Yeah.
that's now whiskey.
You know, I like whiskey, but I'm not drinking 3 Fingers of Rye.
I mean, I'm not drinking 3 Fingers of Rye.
I feel like you are.
I'm drinking 10 fingers, baby.
Every time we go out to a bar, Ryan's like, give me a pint glass full of whiskey.
Yeah, that's a hell of a signature drink.
Yeah, you know what? That's good bourbon.
She was known for elevating the typical dumb blonde stereotype in her films, often playing independent women, rare in early Hollywood shorts at the time. Wary about being used in films simply for her looks, Todd once said in an interview, quote, "Building on beauty seems to me the worst thing any girl can do," end quote.
Seems like a cool lady. I would have liked to party with her and maybe have one of her signature
I'm
drinks.
actually just realizing that this sucks because this episode's about her, so this cool lady is,
Yeah, it's gonna end not well.
Forgot what we were doing.
Forgot
here.
what show we were on.
I've recalled and now I'm sad.
You know, I'll say this about this lady. She was obviously a beautiful woman, did not want to rest on that, as evidenced by what I just said, but also she was able to do things her way without getting blacklisted, which is also admirable because sometimes, especially back then and even now, when you were a woman, it would be taken out on you and it didn't happen for her, so that's actually pretty goddamn cool.
Acting was not Todd's only pursuit. In 1934, Todd opened the successful restaurant Thelma Todd's Sidewalk Cafe on the Pacific Coast Highway. Her business partners in the venture were director and producer Roland West, with whom Todd had been having an on-again, off-again affair for the past 3 years, and silent film actress Jewel Carmen, who was also Roland West's wife.
They had a little love triangle going.
Oh, saucy.
And then they thought, let's open up a restaurant.
I smell a sitcom.
Regardless of what they were doing, they were free loving.
Business, pleasure. Oh, you know, mix them together. Why not? You know
I
what
would
I'm
like to
talking
see you never mix those together ever again.
about? I mean, that's what they were doing.
That's what they could do. That's what you should never do in front of me.
You imagine going to that restaurant and be like, I'd like a cheeseburger. And they'd be like, we'll get that to you in a sec after we finish doing it.
Just wiping sweat off their brow.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, a little extra sauce on this one for you.
Todd kept an apartment above the cafe, as did the West Carmens, with only a single drawing room separating the units. In a detail that will come into play later, West and Carmen also shared a house about 500 yards from the cafe. On Saturday, December 14th, 1935, Todd attended a party thrown in her honor at Cafe Trocadero, a popular nightclub on Hollywood's Sunset Strip. Attendees said Todd seemed to be having a great time at the party, sipping brandy and champagne, and at one point betting some friends a free dinner that they wouldn't visit her restaurant the next day.
I love free food.
I do too. Tastes very free every time.
Yeah.
And that's the best.
I'd eat free food off of, well, never mind. I don't want to get into it. I love free food.
Roland West had asked Todd to be home by 2 a.m., and at 1:50 a.m., Todd asked famous theater manager Sid Grauman to call West and inform him she'd be leaving soon. Regardless, Todd stayed at the party until around 3:15 a.m. Todd's chauffeur, Ernest Peters, dropped the starlet off at the roadside cafe sometime between 3 a.m. and 4:20 a.m. Sunday, the friends Todd had bet wouldn't show up came to collect their free dinners. Though no one had seen Todd at the restaurant, the friends nevertheless enjoyed a comped meal. The next day, December 16th, Todd's maid, Mae Whitehead, began her morning routine, which included getting Todd's Lincoln Phaeton ready from Roland West's home and bringing it down to Todd at the apartment above the cafe. When Whitehead opened the garage, she found the body of Thelma Todd, slumped over the steering wheel with a broken nose and 2 cracked ribs. Todd's obituary in the LA Times described the scene in graphic detail. Coagulated blood marred the screen comedian's features and stained her mauve and silver evening gown and her expensive mink coat when she was found. Her blonde locks pathetically awry in the front seat of her automobile in the garage of Roland West.
Ay. This is a bummer. She seemed like I was having fun with her.
In her honor, maybe we could try and figure out what happened to her.
Or maybe do a fun little screening? A little marathon?
Or we could try and figure out what happened to her, because that's what we're here to do. That's why we're behind the desk.
That's right.
With more than a day unaccounted for between when she was last seen alive and first seen dead, it's time to dive into theories about what happened to Thelma Todd. Our first theory is the official grand jury verdict of her death, that Thelma Todd died of accidental carbon monoxide poisoning. It was a cold evening in the middle of December. Her apartment was near the ocean, and Todd was wearing a lightweight gown, though she also had a mink coat. It's assumed that upon arriving home early Sunday morning, Todd was locked out of the building her apartment was in and went to the garage of West's house, where she got into and turned on the car to stay warm, making the fatal mistake of leaving the engine running with the garage door shut.
I mean, we're going to get to the obvious,
Yes.
which is that generally carbon monoxide poisoning doesn't result in broken ribs.
Nose and, yeah. You know, that is a good point. Perhaps you're not the idiot I figured you to be.
Detective brain.
Maybe you do have a detective brain.
I do, I'm very observant.
Big brain, big head, big hair.
Yeah.
All three in tandem. You're the triad of detectives.
My brain is large, has many synapses.
I could already hear people typing away and making that into a GIF.
The county autopsy surgeon Dr. A.F. Wagner fixed Todd's time of death about 5 a.m. Sunday morning. The New York Times quoted Dr. Wagner as saying, quote, "The autopsy showed monoxide poison to the extent of 70% of total saturation in her blood. There may have been other contributing causes, but that definitely was the major factor," end quote. It's interesting Dr. Wagner mentions how there may have been other contributing causes, as there are some notable details that may point away from an accident. For instance, while it's possible Todd's nose could have broken as she slumped unconscious onto the steering wheel, it is harder to say how Todd sustained 2 cracked ribs.
Trying to entertain the idea that she could have somehow done that herself. It seems tricky. Maybe she could have fallen outside somewhere and then was like, oh, I'm
That is
so
where my mind went.
injured. Let me take a seat in the car. Oh, it's chilly. I'll turn the car on. I mean, was she potentially inebriated
Oh, she was
at this
drunk.
point? Yeah, it seems far-fetched. However I try to figure it, it doesn't work.
I'm not sold, not buying it.
Todd was also known for her interest in cars, and there was apparently a media campaign informing the public about carbon monoxide poisoning. It seems highly likely Todd would have known the dangers of running a car in a closed garage. There's also the question of how Todd wound up in the garage in the first place. Todd would have had to trek up the hill from her apartment to Roland West's garage. Her shoes, however, were not consistent with having walked 500 yards on uneven ground in the damp night. Additionally, when her body was found, her hair was still neatly styled for the party at the Trocadero, not as tousled as one would expect after walking through the reportedly windy evening air.
This is what I meant about her not maybe taking a tumble, because she had heels on. The hill that she would have to walk up to get to the garage was substantial.
Yeah.
No dirt on her shoes, nothing on her gown that would suggest a fall. Her hair still styled. It was a windy night. Seems much more consistent that she was placed in the car as
Shady.
opposed to getting there herself.
Yeah.
Especially in a drunken stupor.
I know also though, sometimes the hair back then, very firm.
Yes.
Firm.
And look, when I've been drunk at the end of a night, I've done some funny things to get into like my bedroom if I forgot my key, but even still, don't think I would be capable of doing that while still looking intact for the most
You
part.
make strange decisions. One night I was very cold, I slept in my trunk.
One night I was very cold and I slept outside the front door,
Like a little dog.
like a little dog,
That's pretty funny.
because I couldn't get in.
Well, we've slept places.
And I tell you what, my hair was very tousled.
West himself seemed to think Todd's actions were a bit suspicious. Apparently, although Todd had been locked out of her apartment before, she had never walked to the garage or attempted to sleep in her car. West testified that Todd was fully aware she could have woken him up to gain entry, even citing an example of one case when Todd had broken a window to gain his attention.
Maybe I could see this if you had messed up while drunk once before. You don't want to do it again.
Yeah, like, oh, what a racket I made last time.
Yeah.
Roland was awful sore about it.
Yeah.
No window breaking this time.
I'll go in the garage instead. Cozy up in a car, something that young Shane Madej even did.
Yeah,
You did not turn on the engine, though.
I did not.
Nor did you have broken ribs, as far as I know.
No broken ribs, never broken a bone.
Big bones. Hard to break.
Long. Unless he's bluffing,
Well, we don't know.
Yeah, you guys better look into this. Look over there, maybe. What about that guy?
I don't know. I've never been accused of murder before. So.
Yet.
Perhaps no one was more confounded to hear Todd had died early Sunday morning than one Mrs. Martha Ford. Ford was throwing a party at her home in Laurel Canyon and reported to police that she received a phone call from Todd on Sunday afternoon, saying she was on her way with a surprise guest. Ford even claimed Todd told her, quote, "I went to a party last night and I'm still in my evening clothes. Do you mind?" End quote. Ford put the call around 4 p.m., around 11 hours after the coroner pegged the time of Todd's death. Ford told the New York Times, quote, "I've known Todd for years, and I couldn't be mistaken," end quote, and that she was, quote, "positive beyond all question," end quote, that it was Todd on the phone.
Okay. All right.
Plot thickens.
Yes, thick. Something that didn't occur to me is that the coroner or the LAPD might be dirty.
Could be dirty.
Yeah.
Or
I've seen LA Confidential.
This
I know
lady-
how it works. And Chinatown.
she could be lying, telling a little fib. Why?
We got more details on her? Is she
No,
known?
but back then people were known to throw themselves into controversy just for the notoriety and for the
get some
publicity.
ink.
Yes, for the ink. And as somebody who's throwing parties in the hills, maybe she wants to get her name out there a little bit more.
I like that nowadays they're like, let's steer clear of the murder stuff. They're like Tom Hiddleston will date Taylor Swift for a week and they'll look like a couple of assholes on a beach wearing shirts. That's all they gotta do. Nobody's gotta murder each other to get in the papers, you know?
Though if Tom Hiddleston did murder somebody, he would be in the papers.
Can you imagine?
Loki? Nah.
I mean, there's a darkness in him. I don't think he's a murderer, for the record.
Though a police officer testified that no phone records showed any calls had been made from Todd's property on Sunday, it's easy to imagine Todd could have used a different phone. Still, Ford's insistence on having spoken to Todd is not the only wrinkle in the timeline. Todd's autopsy found peas and carrots in the starlet's stomach, neither of which had been served at the Trocadero party. The peas had just started to digest at the time of her death, which could suggest Todd had been picked up again after being dropped off by Peters, taken to eat somewhere else, and then taken back to West's garage to die.
I cannot imagine.
Your last meal being peas and carrots?
Yeah.
That's rough. That's like a bunny rabbit.
Especially after a night of partying?
Yeah,
Can you
no one's
imagine waking
like-
up eating peas and carrots? That stinks.
Just being blasted, like, I need some peas and carrots, stat.
With all of these factors surrounding the possibility of Todd's death being an accident, nothing is more confounding than the contents of her purse. Found next to her in the car, her bag contained lipstick, a cigarette case, some handkerchiefs, and a coin purse which itself contained the key to the side door of her apartment building.
Why is that confounding? That
Because
makes
why
sense.
was she in the garage?
Because somebody fucking killed her.
That's the point.
Oh,
We
okay.
don't know somebody killed her. We're trying to list reasons why somebody maybe didn't kill her.
Somebody, spoiler alert, somebody murdered her.
Yeah, she has a key to get into her house.
And they got away with it.
Have you ever been so drunk you didn't remember you had your key on you? I haven't.
No, that hasn't happened to me, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she was murdered.
Yeah, I think so too.
With all of these complicating factors, it makes sense that the coroner's jury verdict read, quote, "The death of the deceased appears to have been accidental. But we recommend further investigation to be made in this case by the proper authorities," end quote. And while we may not be the proper authorities, further investigation is exactly what we're going to do.
Good, we'll do what they couldn't. Here's how it works though. You're a powerful man in Hollywood. You're a piece of shit. You got an axe to grind with a young starlet. You wipe her off the map. You pay off the people who should be doing the investigating, swept under the rug.
So do you think this coroner got some heat?
Maybe, I don't know, but I'm sure he got a little grease on his palm for this one.
You got some salad?
Yeah,
Got a couple leaves for a salad?
yeah. Couple of queens in that fat pocket of his.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
Little bones in his graveyard.
Sure. Yeah, I like that.
Our next theory is that Thelma Todd intentionally killed herself in the garage of her lover. In addition to her having the key to her apartment building with her when she died, her chauffeur said Todd was unusually quiet as he drove her home that night. He reported that she did not ask him to escort her to her door as she usually did. One source also claimed Todd had received an upsetting message from an anonymous person on the night of the party. With her interest in cars, Todd would likely have known running a car in her garage would result in her death. This theory is, however, admittedly thin, and her actions had not aligned with self-destructive behavior around the time of her death. Her restaurant was a hot new success. She had recently signed a new film contract, and the trunk of her car was full of Christmas presents for family and friends. The host of the party at the Trocadero also said that Todd told her she was newly involved with a man in San Francisco. I know I listed a bunch of reasons why she would not commit suicide there. I will say this though, that doesn't mean anything usually. You don't know what's going on inside someone's head unless you actually talk to them, which should be a lesson to everybody out there.
Me, I don't like talking to people I care about. That's my personal preference.
Wait, you never talk to me?
Yeah,
Do you care about me?
clearly.
That's crazy because I don't care about you.
Oh.
Our third theory is, of course, that Thelma Todd was murdered. It's unlikely she was killed by a stranger who wanted to rob her, as none of the jewelry she had been wearing was missing, though there are some particular suspects we want to bring up. The first is Roland West, her lover in whose garage Todd's body was found. West was said to be a jealous man, and Todd and West opened their popular cafe so they could spend more time together. If Todd had actually begun dating a new man in San Francisco, West may have been hypocritically upset. On his deathbed, West actually admitted to being responsible for Todd's death and accidentally locking her in the garage. His recounting of the events which occurred that night, however, was full of inconsistencies and contradictions.
Yeah, it's an odd thing to admit. There's a bunch of inconsistencies. The ocean is down the hill. You could dispose of it that way, but I guess he's not thinking straight. It's not
Can't
worth
dispose in the ocean.
better than
Tide just kicks it all back up.
rather than leaving her in the garage, in your own garage.
Well, clearly that seemed to work. I mean,
Fair enough.
Nobody got the cuff slapped on him, so.
It's a weird thing to admit. Definitely not worth glossing over. But somehow I still don't buy it. I don't know why.
Well, but him locking her in the garage wouldn't necessarily.
Well, if he
just
knocked
turn-
her, if he knocked her out, then turned the car on, then locked her in the garage.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes
It
sense.
seems like a weird way to do it, though, to be quite honest.
Another suspect is Jewel Carmen, Roland West's wife. While a jealous wife might sound like an obvious suspect into her husband's mistress's death, it is said she did not resent her husband's affair. Instead, the Chicago Tribune claimed Carmen threatened to kill Todd for squandering money at the restaurant in which she, her husband, and Todd were business partners. Beyond a potential motive, however, there was no physical evidence Carmen was involved in Todd's death.
So Jewel Carmen's beef with Thelma Todd wasn't over the affair necessarily as much as it was over money from the business. that
Yeah,
they
but
all-
what's murder gonna fix, you know?
Nothing.
Right.
Obviously,
I
maybe
guess
you're
it could have been like a fit of rage,
Yeah,
like
you're
I'm
not-
pissed at you
Yeah.
for skimming a little off the top. Seems a little obvious.
circumstantial, no real evidence, just a motive.
Yeah, not enough to it there.
You could make the argument that after Todd is out of the picture, Jewel Carmen and now Roland West have full ownership of the cafe, though it is called Thelma Todd's Roadside Cafe.
Yeah. Also, that's more work for you. You know? Yeah. Who wants that?
Yeah.
You know what? I'm not buying it.
The third suspect in a potential murder is Todd's ex-husband, Pat DeSico, a self-described, quote, agent with underworld connections, end quote.
Jesus, who describes himself as an agent with underworld connections?
I do generally.
When have you ever slipped that into a
It's
casual
on my business
conversation?
card.
Agent with underworld connections?
Yeah.
Shame a day, agent with underworld connections. Nice to meet you. Let's talk about this Prius I'm trying to sell you.
DeSico was said to have a violent temper, and his second wife, heiress Gloria Vanderbilt, described him as a brute with a bad temper who would physically abuse her when he was drunk.
Not a surprise that DeSico shows up here, and not a surprise that he was a human garbage pile.
Yeah, a flaming human garbage pile.
I mean, if he, picked up a young starlet as his wife, knowing the system, probably not a nice guy.
I can't think of a colder take than a guy who puts hands on women. Not a good dude.
I called him a pile of garbage.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. It's like it's very obvious.
Hot take?
Hot take there. Hot take there. I don't think this guy's a good guy.
The night before her death at the Trocadero, Todd ran into DeSico. Many eyewitnesses said their interaction seemed heated. When summoned for the grand jury, DeSico testified that he hadn't heard about Todd's death. In Todd's will, dated from when they were still married, DeSico was left $1.
Brutal.
It's kind of like, at that point, don't leave him anything at all, but it's a sick burn. It's a sick burn, I know.
Yeah.
A fourth suspect, one that was especially popular at the time, is that mobster Lucky Luciano had put a hit out on Todd. Earlier in 1935, Todd received a string of 8 letters threatening her life if she didn't pay $10,000, signed by the quote, Ace of Hearts, end quote.
Don't blackmail people. I mean, one, it's illegal.
And if you're gonna do it, get a better pseudonym than Ace of Hearts.
Ace of Hearts.
That's a shitty
It's not even
alias.
threatening.
No, it's not.
After a suspect was arrested in August 1935, however, the letters stopped. Nevertheless, Todd, who was found dead 4 months later, was convinced the whole ordeal was mob-related. Many speculated Luciano had wanted to set up a high-ticket casino on the 3rd floor of her restaurant, but Todd refused, resulting in her murder. This theory supposes that after she was dropped off at the cafe, someone with ties to Luciano picked her up again, took her out to eat, killed her, and put her in West's garage afterwards, which could explain the peas found in her stomach and her 2 cracked ribs. While it appears Luciano left Los Angeles abruptly shortly after Todd's death, never to return, it should be noted that this entire theory is merely speculation. In reality, there is no evidence that Todd and Luciano ever actually met.
Lucky he's shown up here before, yes?
He has shown up in a couple cases,
Yeah, that's
namely the Bugsy Siegel case.
Yes. Oh, this guy got around. I guess if you're a mob man in early Los Angeles,
Yeah, your fingers are in a bunch of different
people
little pots.
finger you for a lot of different things, huh? That's a verb.
It is.
That means what it means.
It does mean what you said it means. Lots of different pots. Was that you putting fingers in pies or pots?
I don't know.
Gone at age 29, Thelma Todd was in the midst of a successful Hollywood career, tragically cut short. While her death was officially ruled an accident, there are enough suspicious incongruencies in her final hours to keep her story alive these more than 80 years later. Whether accident, suicide, or murder, what actually happened to the starlet that night after leaving the Sunset Strip remains unsolved.
Out of all these theories, which one do you think is the most likely?
I'm gonna go with, honestly, it seems like, to me, she was possibly assaulted and then placed in the car, maybe not very conscious. Car was turned on, that was that.
I too believe it was murder. And if I had to say who it was, probably the ex-husband. But, I can't say that. Seems pretty cut and dry.
Tough to end a sad episode, huh?
It was an untimely end to an otherwise very cool lady.
Yeah.
And I guess we'll just leave it at that. R.I.P.
See you next week.
This week on BuzzFeed Unsolved, we tap into a mystery that you, the unsolved masses, have often requested. Bella in the Witch Elm.
You think we're not listening to you out there? We're listening.
We always got our ears open.
I'd rather do this than someone who's like, hey, my aunt disappeared. Wouldn't it be fun to look into that?
Yeah, could you boys get on the case and crack a couple funny jokes about Marge? By the way, I have this on my head because my hair's too long and I don't know what to do anymore. So
Sure.
I just tied it up like a little present.
Incredibly respectful. Let's dig in. Oh, I'm usually the sipper.
We did that in reverse. Should you open the case file?
Feels wrong.
It does. Let me do that. Give me that before you hurt yourself.
On April 18th, 1943, 4 teenage boys from Birmingham, England were marching through Hagley Wood searching for food. World War II was raging across Europe, and due to rationing, Bob Farmer, Robert Hart, Fred Payne, and Thomas Willits were on the lookout for bird nests that might have some free eggs.
Fun to hunt for eggs with your boys?
Because they were starving, though.
Yes, but that's what they were doing. I'm not
you
making a joke
You
about
started
it.
the sentence with fun to hunt with eggs with your boys.
It sounds like a fun thing to do.
Not when you're starving, though.
Let's say you're not starving. Still fun to go out in the woods and hunt for things with your boys.
I suppose, yeah.
One of the boys split off to look in the stump of an old wych elm tree. When he peered through the tangled branches, a round, white object caught his eye. The young man had not discovered an egg, however, but a human skull. One of the boys used a stick to remove the skull from the tree. Before leaving the scene, the skull was replaced, and it said the boys vowed never to speak of it again. By the next day, one of the boys squealed to his father, who in turn alerted police.
Do you think...
How would you react, actually? I'm curious.
I was actually gonna say, here's how I would react. Oh, dude! Like that.
to a human skull.
Probably.
You wouldn't go, zoinks, let's get home.
Because
Or
that's better? Zoinks?
I would drop it, I'd scream, and I'd run straight to my mother. It doesn't shock me, actually, now. I don't know why I was shocked by you not being alarmed by a human skull.
It's different, though, when it's a skull, because it's like, well, it's just a funny skeleton. It's a funny bone man.
It was a human's head.
It was.
Now imagine a skeleton with hair coming out of it, how scary that is. You ever think about that? Does hair go through the skull, or does it come from the top?
Absolutely not.
How does it start?
Do you understand anything about science?
I don't.
Or,
How does,
oh my-
where does hair start?
Do you think it starts in the brain, Ryan?
Yeah, it starts in the brain.
Goes through the skull.
No, but what part of the epidermal layer is it on? Like, is it just like...
I don't know, but it's above the bone.
Then why is it sometimes on the skull?
What are you talking? Because it's connected to the skin that is connected to the skull.
No, but the skin is gone, is what I'm saying. And I've heard that sometimes the hair is stuck into the skull.
That's not true. Does hair grow through the skull?
One of the boys, Thomas Willits, accompanied police back to the stump, located just 35 yards from Hagley Wood Lane. Authorities found a tree approximately 5 to 6 feet tall, with an opening that tapered down, getting as narrow as 17 inches in diameter at one point. Investigators gathered the skull and other bones from the tree, as well as some bones found in the surrounding area believed to have been scattered by foxes and squirrels.
I wouldn't bother.
Jesus Christ.
It's bones!
It's a fucking person.
They
were bones. They're
bones
bones now.
by now.
You're bones now.
I am bones now, but there's a lot of meat around those bones. When I am bones, if you find me somewhere,
Well, you want me to use your
Carry
femur
on.
as a frisbee or something? Or
sure.
A boomerang?
Give
a
it to a
bonerang?
dog.
I don't know. I'm not going to do that with your bones.
I'll bequeath my bones to someone else.
You strike me as a cremated kind of guy.
I am a do whatever the hell you want kind of guy.
Jesus Christ.
I did see a video of a sky burial, and I love that, where they put your body out in a field and they kind of chop you up into fillets, and then a bunch of giant vultures come and eat you.
I had a much different image in my head.
Oh, like you put me in a cannon
just
and
put-
shoot me at the sun
Just
or
put
something?
you in a plane and just throw you off the plane.
Actually sounds pretty baller, too.
Someone chilling on like a inner tube in their pool, and all of a sudden just Shane Madej's corpse rains from the
rockets
sky.
into the ground,
ruins
like
Marge's
God shot
afternoon.
me out of a gun.
Forensic scientist Professor J.M. Webster was then able to partially reconstruct the skeleton of a woman between 25 and 40 years old, most likely closer to 35. The bones showed no signs of disease or violence, though a large piece of taffeta had been stuffed into the mouth, leading to a suspicion of asphyxiation as a possible cause of death. A probable description of the woman was released to the public, describing a woman just 5 feet tall, with light brown hair, dressed in a striped dark blue and mustard-colored cardigan and a mustard-colored skirt. One blue shoe, size 5.5, was found outside of the tree. Inside the trunk was its matching partner, as well as a cheap rolled gold wedding ring. It was believed the woman had been dead for at least 18 months. Suicide as a possible cause of death was ruled out due to the peculiar shape of the tree. Webster said, quote, "I cannot imagine a person getting into the tree voluntarily. Even a small person like this could not have got in without doing herself a considerable amount of tearing," end quote.
What a verdict.
Yeah. I think someone murdered her. This lady couldn't have shoved herself in that tree. I think someone else did it. Case closed.
But who put her in there is the question.
And also the question, if someone were to have, say, murdered her, you would have to do it almost immediately before rigor mortis set in. Either that, or they waited till complete decomposition and then shoved the bones in there. But I don't think that's the case either. 'Cause
That's a long wait for complete decomposition.
Do you ever think about how weird it is to like, okay, so you pick up a body, right? You're picking it up when it
What are you
has
talking
the meat and
about when
the
it
bones. When it's fully a skeleton. How strange that sensation would be to pick up what used to be a body, but now it's just fully bones. It's a full skeleton.
Yeah, but I don't think the skeleton's like...
Do they stay together?
No, I don't think so. I don't think it's like a
Like a Halloween?
like a Merry Melodies cartoon. Playing the ribs like a xylophone.
Like a xylophone? This episode is called Ryan Does Not Know a Lot About Human Physiology.
Police rooted through records of missing women, but turned up nothing. After releasing the probable description of the woman, calls came in from around the area, but none of the leads produced a match. An inquest jury found a verdict of, quote, "murder by some person or persons unknown," end quote. On May 4th, a report was published in the Birmingham Daily Gazette, calling for dentists to come forward who may recognize some distinctive features in the woman's teeth. In her lower jaw, her front teeth overlapped, and a tooth was missing from the right side, likely pulled by a dentist within a year of the woman's death. Still, no identity could be given to the remains.
Your dad ever help out on a case?
No, and I'm just starting to wonder how useful are dentists when it comes to these cases. It seems like every time we call in a dentist, I got nothing.
Yeah, those are teeth, all right.
In March of 1944, an empty building in Birmingham was graffitied in chalk. Quote, "Who put Bella down the wych elm, Hagley Wood?" End quote. It had been almost a year since the body was found, though this was the first time she was given a name. The words appeared too high up on the wall to be attributed to boys pulling a prank, and police were intrigued. After discovering this graffiti, another report came in to authorities about a house on Hayden Hill Road that had similarly been vandalized months prior with the words, quote, "Who put Lubella down the wych elm?" End quote. Because the graffiti was all in the same handwriting, and because the tags all spelled witch correctly, police believed a lone countryman was responsible. Anyone who knew of a Bella who had gone missing were asked to alert police.
What is this person accomplishing by doing this?
Raising hell, you know? Getting people talking about
Creating hysteria?
Yeah, also probably putting pressure on the investigation.
Do you think this is someone trying to pressure the investigation to get closed, or you think this is a killer mocking the police? Which one do you lean towards?
I lean toward the former. I feel like someone is just stirring the pot.
I actually think it's someone mocking the police, like a Zodiac of sorts.
Then why wouldn't you just I put Bella in the wych elm?
Because who put Bella in the wych elm is...
Me.
No, I'm saying that's like more provocative.
I feel like more provocative is I put Bella in the wych elm.
You imagine that's how they solve the case. They're at a town hall meeting and they're like, who put Bella in the wych elm? And someone goes, me! It was me!
In August of 1944, the writings began to appear again. Quote, "Hagley Wood Lubella was opposite Rose and Crown, Hasbury," end quote, was found written both in nearby Halesowen and Wolverhampton. Again, the handwriting appeared to match the previous vandalism. Still, no one could turn up records of any Lubella or Bella that matched the body found. In 1953, 9 years after the last graffiti of note appeared, police finally found their wych elm Banksy, though it turned out the authorities had been barking up the wrong tree. The county's detective superintendent remarked, quote, "It was the work of a crank who we are satisfied knew nothing and had nothing to do with the case, so it seems that Bella wasn't even Bella after all," end quote.
So just a funster.
Just a funster.
You live in a quiet town. Most exciting thing that's happened in the past decade is that they found bones in a tree.
Why don't you do anything else that's not as disrespectful?
Well, I'm saying there's a big bone commotion, and that's fun, and then it dies down, and everyone stops talking about the bones. You're going to work. Nothing exciting is happening. Well, it sure would be fun if everyone got in a tizzy about them bones again. Write about the bones on a
Or
wall.
why don't you do something else, like crop circles?
Well, they do that all there, too. So
That's what I'm saying. You could do something that's fun like that.
crop circles are a lot of work.
With police stumped, it's time to examine some theories. Our first theory was one advanced by police early, that the mystery woman's death occurred during one of the war's air raids. Upon hearing air raid sirens, the woman may have sought safety in the woods. Police supposed the woman may have been attacked and gagged, perhaps dying accidentally as a result, and then stuffed into the elm. Her family would have then assumed she died in the raid and not alerted any authorities. However, this theory fails to explain how the woman got in the tree and who was responsible.
One thing about the air raid could be the actual sirens going off would then cover any screaming.
True. Air raids are scary, man. I can't even imagine. Growing up in Illinois, you get those tornado sirens every now and then.
Knowing you, I'm surprised you wouldn't just walk out into the open with your arms spread wide, just screaming, "Take me" at the sky.
Not for tornadoes, not for tornadoes. You ever seen Twister?
I've seen Twister, yes.
It's no joke. It's strange when your life is just interrupted by a large noise that everybody else can also hear. There's no excuses, you know? It's like, well, I guess me and everyone in this neighborhood and county have to hide now. Time to hide, everybody!
A spookier theory, detailed in a 1950 article in the Birmingham Daily Gazette and harbored by Egyptologist Dr. Margaret Murray, posits that the woman may have been a human sacrifice. Murray stated she believed there were, quote, "still remnants of witchcraft in isolated parts of Great Britain," end quote. According to Murray, quote, "The sacrifices are carried out by people who still believe in a religion practiced in Britain before Christianity, whom we call devil worshippers. They still practice black magic. The belief is that if life is taken out of the ground through farming, it must be replaced by a blood sacrifice." End quote. Murray believed not just the woman found in the witch elm, but also another person later found murdered in the area could be attributed to these devil worshippers.
What a crock of shit.
Why do you say that?
Here's the thing. I think what happened was somebody bad committed something very bad, and then somebody else took that and tried to wedge it into this narrative of devil worshipping and then like had an agenda. But I know I'm the resident supernatural guy, but to me this just seems like plain old murder.
But this doesn't feel like supernatural so much as people believing in the supernatural and acting out on it. There's no evidence of supernatural here. It's just people being like, I really want to win the prize at the farmer's market, so I'm going to feed my soil with the blood of a virgin.
I just don't know if shoving someone in a witch elm is very ritualistic.
I'd say so.
I think clearly it worked as a way to hide a body.
According to author Donald McCormick, there had always been talk of Hagley Wood being the home of some covens of witches. He even pointed to an ancient tradition of trapping a witch's spirit inside a hollow tree, using it as a sort of prison to prevent her from causing any further trouble in the world. There were indications that the tree in which the body was found had, before the body was placed inside, been occasionally trimmed, which stunted its growth.
I gotta plant one of these trees.
That's what you took from that?
Yeah, I guess.
That's alarming.
It'd be fun to have people over and be like, you see that? There's a witch elm.
I swear to God, I thought you were going to say it'd be fun to have people in a tree. And I got really scared.
It'd be fun to have people over and stuff them into my witch elm.
To my witch prison.
Though there isn't much physical evidence that occult rites are to blame for Bella's death, one man did turn to alternative methods in an attempt to unearth some answers. Late one night in January 1954, Mr. George Elwell, a British Railways official and spare time inventor, went for a walk in Hagley Wood, pausing at the infamous witch elm. After, quote, assimilating to the atmosphere, end quote, Elwell returned home and decided to place himself in a hypnotic trance using a blinking car headlamp and a mirror and recording the results.
He's sitting in front of his car headlight in his driveway, saying this aloud? Staring directly at the blinking like turn signal? Is that what he's doing? What a weirdo.
I mean, there's no way to explain that without it seeming psychotic. Be honest, you're hearing him out though. You want to hear what this crazy man says.
Yeah.
After the 15 minutes, Elwell came to. He sent a transcript to police, which included the alleged murderer's name and a description. It's unclear what police did with the report, but suffice it to say, they never announced, case closed.
I bet they filed that in the special filing cabinet. The trash can.
Our final and most intricate theory as to why no one came forward to identify the woman was because she was a foreigner and possibly even a Nazi spy. In November 1953, a Wolverhampton newspaper received a letter claiming the sender knew the identities of the woman in the tree and her murderer. The letter, signed simply Anna, explained, quote, "You will never solve the mystery. The one person who could give the answer is now beyond the jurisdiction of earthly courts. The affair is closed and involves no witches, black magic, or moonlight rites. The person responsible died insane in 1942, and the victim was Dutch and arrived illegally in England about 1941, end quote.
That's cool!
That is the coolest way to say someone has passed away that I have ever heard.
I do very much love it.
God, that's good
so
stuff.
Much flavor. I'm salivating.
That's a juicy wing that I'm peeling all the meat off the bone.
Dunk that shit in some ranch, buddy. I really think this. If you're that good at writing, why would you lie about this?
It's still under the guise of anonymity. It's still a tale, regardless.
The Anna who wrote the letter was eventually found and questioned by police. Reports say this Anna's identity was one Una Mossop. Una claimed that her husband, a Royal Air Force pilot named Jack Mossop, got caught up in a branch of a spy ring that the woman in the tree was involved in. Una claimed the woman was a spy looking for intel on where future air raids should strike in England. There are different accounts of Jack's possible involvement with the woman found in the tree. One claims Jack and a Dutch man named Van Ralt, who was also part of the spy ring, were out drinking in a pub with the woman. She allegedly got too drunk, passed out, and the two men stuffed the poor woman into a tree as a joke. When she awoke, she was unable to free herself and ended up dying there. Another version of the story states that Van Ralt and the woman were in a car when they picked up Jack. A little while later, Van Ralt strangled the woman, presumably due to a disagreement within their spy ring, and then put her in the tree.
You know what we do with spies around here? We put them in the witch elm. Love spy stuff. I feel like spy stuff happens all the time, and probably a lot of the things that seem unsolved are probably spy stuff. Spies are good at covering their tracks. Sure, they could have just disposed of the body, but if it's someone that nobody knows and who doesn't really have a quote-unquote identity, leave the body there, sure, whatever.
You're murdering a ghost at that point.
Yeah.
However, can we just revisit that first story? If that's how people in England treat their fellow mates that are drunk,
Yeah.
by stuffing them in a witch elm.
We'll stuff you in a tree.
See, in America, when you do something like passing out with your shoes on, you draw a funny little thing on their face.
A funny little what, Ryan?
I mean, it could be a wiener.
Whatever happened to the woman, Una stated it gave her late husband nightmares, causing a decline in his mental health. Jack died in a mental hospital before the remains were discovered. While not much was made of Una's story, there's a bit more to this theory than the pulpy claims of a wartime widow. After hearing of the Anna signed letter, which claimed Bella was Dutch, author Donald McCormick traveled to Holland to see if he could find anything to substantiate the claim. There, he found remarkable evidence that confirmed at least some of what Una had written. McCormick learned that within the Nazi espionage system, a man named Lehrer worked on recruiting accomplices who could work in Britain as spies. Lehrer allegedly had a Dutch girlfriend who lived in Birmingham in the 30s, giving her great knowledge of Britain and allowing her to speak with no detectable Dutch accent. McCormick states that in March and April of 1941, records show 5 German spies were sent into England from Holland during Operation Sea Lion. One of these spies, a woman with the codename Clara, was reportedly dropped by plane over an area that happened to encompass Hagley Wood. Clara never made contact and was presumed MIA. Digging deeper, McCormick spoke with a former Nazi, Franz Rathgeb, who was living in Paraguay under an alias. Rathgeb gave McCormick a description of Clara that largely matched that of the woman found in the tree.
Talk about going the extra mile. This guy actually went to Holland to track down his theory. What do? We sit here and do a little Googling.
I mean, we don't do shit.
Declassified MI5 files reveal the existence of a German spy captured while parachuting into England in 1941 by the name of Josef Jakobs. Once apprehended, one of his possessions in particular sticks out, a photograph of a German singer-actress, Clara Bauerle. Jakobs claimed Clara was both his girlfriend and a German spy. Jakobs claimed that Clara parachuted into the Midlands, where Hagley Wood is located in 1941, but was never heard from again.
That's 3 independent sources now kind of filling in the gaps here about Clara.
I never in a million years thought that this would take a spy turn. What an episode!
This is starting to round out here into be something much more than it seemed. Can you
I like
believe-
seeing the full picture.
Isn't it also?
I didn't like doing
I don't
that,
like you
though.
rubbing
Sorry
the
about
picture
that.
like that. Why don't you unrub the picture? Yep, there we
Also
go.
creepy.
Can you also remember that the first theory was maybe there was an air raid?
Oh, it stunk.
While this story does seem to have a lot of different and corroborating angles, Bella in the Witch Elm is likely not Clara Bauerle. Clara stood 5'10", a good 10 inches taller than the skeleton found in the tree. Even more damning, there is a log of Clara dying in a Berlin hospital in 1942.
What the fuck? Why would you do this?
I'm sorry.
What's the point? What are we
Because-
doing here?
Because it was
I was having so much fun.
I knew that was gonna knock the wind out of you, and you know what? Did you not have fun until that moment happened?
I did, but now it's all negated.
That's true, and we're not here to tell truths. We're here to spin sometimes.
It's like I ate a delicious meat pie and it was all sitting in my stomach. Then you punched me and I vomited it all up.
All right, just untie your little underwear, get them out of the knot.
Okay.
Okay. It's still possible. Clara could just be a uniform code name for all German spies. It did come from the declassified MI5 file. Who's to say that records from a Berlin hospital would actually be accurate if it was in fact a spy? Do I believe that? I don't know about that because it kind of ruined the anecdote we got from Jacobs.
You know what? I'll take it.
The rejection of the Clara Bauerle theory leaves one to consider other possibilities. Perhaps she was still a spy of a different name, or possibly a foreigner tangled up with the wrong crowd. Of course, maybe it was a witch. According to West Mercia police, Bella's remains have been lost over the years, meaning the case can't take advantage of modern DNA analysis and clouding the chances of future progress in the case. Perhaps, like the 4 boys who stumbled upon the mystery that spring day in 1943, someone will come across another clue, hidden away and waiting for a chance crossing of paths. Until then, the case of who put Bella in the witch elm will remain unsolved.
My big takeaway is let's look after our bones a little better. Oh, why are they throwing these things out left and right? If you find bones and you think like, well, maybe in 90 years they'd like to make a funny YouTube video about this case.
It would be the right
Hang
thing to
on
do.
to 'em.
To hang on it. Hang
Yeah.
on to it for that purpose.
I'm all in on Spy.
I will be all in on Spy, if not just so that it makes this less sad, but also it actually is the most compelling theory. She was a spy. I'm gonna say it right.
We're going Spy.
We're going Spy.
Can we say we solved it?
You
We
guys
can't.
got Spy out there? You
Technically,
got
we
Spy?
can't.
I got Spy.
We can't say that. We didn't solve it, but
This week on BuzzFeed Unsolved, we're taking a look at the murder of Marilyn Shepard, a homicide case that broke a quiet suburban town wide open and became the basis for a major Hollywood blockbuster.
Jurassic Park. That's stupid. I don't know. What's it? What movie is it?
I could tell.
Can you tell me? Would that give too much away?
I know you know the movie, so I can't tell you what it is because then you're just gonna know. There's gonna be a point in the script where you're gonna be like, oh,
That film.
that film starring. You can put in the actor's name.
Interesting.
This is not gonna become a is it this movie guessing game.
It may.
That aside, I will say one thing interesting about this case is it's the first case we've ever covered where there's actually a conviction.
Oh.
So, that being said, let's get into it.
Good tease.
On February 21st, 1945, Dr. Samuel Shepard and Marilyn Reese were married and settled near Lake Erie, Ohio. 2 years later, they had their first and only child, affectionately nicknamed Chip.
Revolutionary Road.
Oh yes, your guess. 2 sentences in, huh?
Yeah.
Does anybody even die in that film?
Maybe. I don't remember.
You just named a
People
movie
get married
without-
in it.
Sam was a respected neurosurgeon, and the attractive couple was believed to have a happy marriage. Their small suburban community was the kind where all their neighbors were friends, and maybe a little too friendly. On July 3rd, 1954, the Shepards hosted their neighbors for dinner, drinks, and a movie. Just after midnight, Sam fell asleep on the couch, and Marilyn said her goodbyes to the guests. What transpired in the next few hours has been the source of intense scrutiny and is still a mystery. At about 5:40 a.m. on July 4th, Mayor Spencer Hoke, a close friend of the Shepards, awoke to a phone call from Sam saying, quote, "My God, Spence, get over here quick. I think they have killed Marilyn," end quote. Hoke and his wife Esther raced to the house to find Sam shirtless in his study, holding his neck, seemingly in a state of shock. They called the police and first responders arrived by 6 a.m.
He falls asleep.
Yes.
But then he's calling the cops.
He doesn't call the cops, he calls the mayor.
That's kind of cool.
Who calls them?
Skip the cops, call the mayor.
I mean, I guess it's a small town. What the hell's the mayor gonna do?
I'd love to know the mayor.
From the police report, Marilyn's body was found lying upwards, her face turned toward the door, beaten beyond recognition. She had over 20 gashes curved deep into her face and scalp. Blood covered the sheets, and the walls were dripping with heavy spatter. Her pajamas were partially removed, leaving her exposed. Eventually, the autopsy determined Marilyn's time of death was, quote, about 4:30 a.m., end quote. It also, sadly, revealed that Marilyn had been 4 months pregnant with her second child, also a boy. According to Shepard, he had been asleep downstairs when he heard Marilyn shout his name. He ran up to the bedroom to find Marilyn being attacked by a, quote, white form, end quote. They fought, but Sam was hit on the back of his neck and knocked out. When he came to, Marilyn was dead and the white form was gone. Worried for his son's safety, Sam ran to Chip's room where he thankfully found him sleeping soundly. He then hurried downstairs to see the form exiting through the back door. he chased the tall and bushy-haired figure down to the shore of Lake Erie. Sam explained that he, quote, lunged or jumped and grasped, end quote, at the form on the beach, and then, quote, I felt myself twisting or choking, and this terminated my consciousness, end quote. When Sam woke, it was nearly dawn, and he was missing his shirt and watch.
It's weird. I don't get it.
He wakes up from a nap, hears commotion upstairs. He goes
Sees
in.
a ghost.
No,
A white form.
I don't know why he keeps saying it's a form like it's Michael Myers or
A
something.
shape. The shape. He sees the shape.
He sees the shape. Truth or story, thus far?
Well, I mean, I don't really have a...
If you had to call it truth or story.
I guess I'd go truth. I don't know the man well enough to really gauge his character. Yeah, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
What makes you think this is more plausible than...
I don't know. He seems scared, you know?
I guess. I will say at this point it sounds like a story to me, mainly because all the details seem wildly convenient in terms of...
What's convenient about a white form, though? Because if you were lying, you'd be like, yeah, there's like a person.
If I'm fighting you and I've never seen you, first things I'm saying, big head, weird mustache, unkempt hair, kind of gangly, pale, big nose, kind of smelled like cottage cheese.
I don't smell like cottage cheese, so throw that testimony out.
But you agree with all the other stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
In the early morning hours of July 4th, 1954, the police arrived at the Shepherd house to find a gruesome crime scene where the only witness to the possible murderer was also the most likely suspect. With that, let's get into some theories.
By the way, do you know what film this is yet?
I don't know what film this is yet.
Okay. Our first theory...
The Fugitive? Is it The Fugitive?
Maybe.
I mean, yes or no?
Yeah, it's fugitive. Yeah.
I didn't kill my wife.
Our first theory, and the most popular one, is that the entire story was made up and that Sam Shepherd murdered his wife in cold blood. There was no sign of forced entry and no murder weapon present at the scene. The desk drawers were neat, which would not be normal in the case of a robbery. Coroner Sam Gerber commented on the blood on Marilyn's pillow, saying, quote, in this bloodstain, I could make out the impression of a surgical instrument, end quote. A weapon that would have been convenient for a neurosurgeon. In a bush outside, Gerber found a canvas bag with Sam's wristwatch, fraternity ring, and key, all covered in blood.
Oh, he's a doctor.
Yes.
Sam Shepherd is a doctor.
That was also...
Just like The Fugitive.
That was also in the first
Didn't
two
occur
sentences.
to me. Yeah, I got that now. When's Tommy Lee showing up?
I don't know. I think you're getting a little bit away from what we're talking about here. Why does this not look good for Sam?
Because all his shit is covered in blood.
In the days following Marilyn's murder, investigators began honing in on Sam's rumored infidelities as a possible motive. Evidence pointed them to a woman named Susan Hayes, a lab technician at the hospital. Meanwhile, media fervor escalated. By July 20th, headlines read, quote, someone is getting away with murder, end quote, calling for Sam's arrest and conviction. On July 21st, the Cleveland Press headline read, quote, why no inquest? Do it now, Dr. Gerber, end quote. Sure enough, later that day, Dr. Gerber called an inquest and subpoenaed Shepherd to attend. The 3-day spectacle was a, quote, media circus, end quote, culminating with Gerber asking Sam, quote, did you and Sue Hayes at any time sleep in the same bed, end quote, to which Sam replied, quote, absolutely not, end quote. Following the inquest on July 30th, 1954, Sam Shepherd was arrested and charged with the first-degree murder of Marilyn Shepherd.
Well, they got to that quick, huh? And honestly, like, investigating these things, like, we just sort of brush the fine details a little bit, really don't dig too deep. Mm-hmm. Seems like a huge pain in the ass. Just arrest somebody.
I'm not gonna even, there's no...
Granted, it's not our full-time jobs, but if it were mine, I'd be like, I just want to chill at the station, man.
I'm so glad you are not any kind of investigating authority.
I mean, I've never claimed to want to be.
Good.
I'm not saying that, like, we should just throw innocent people in jail.
Kind of what you just said. You just
But
said,
let's
get this wrapped up before noon so I can open a chili boy at the station.
I'm just saying I can understand the impulse to be like, ugh.
No, do your fucking job.
I mean, if this guy's putting himself in the situation where, oh, all your clothes are covered in blood, that doesn't happen to nice people.
They didn't do their job.
Throw away the key.
Unbelievable.
The first trial began on October 18th. The prosecution relied heavily on Coroner Gerber's damning evidence at the scene, along with the heavy media pressure to convict. Their last witness was Susan Hayes. Hayes confirmed the 2-year-long affair, and when Sam took the stand, he finally admitted to the infidelity. Unfortunately, in addition to revealing that he'd lied, he also came off as arrogant and glib.
Do you buy the logic that they were clearly peddling here, which is he lied about that? He could be lying about this murder.
Nah.
Two different things, right?
Two different things.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
And it doesn't surprise me that he'd be arrogant and glib, because doctors are
Well, that part you can maybe not do that when you're on the stand.
probably hard to avoid. You're playing God every day.
Well, I mean, I'm also a doctor.
He's like, I have fixed brains.
Though every doctor does have to have bedside manner. He can't put a little bit of that up on the stand.
I don't know if the surgeons have to do that, though.
Well, I guess you're knocked out.
They're like little Beethoven people.
How
They
you
just
doing
show up
down
and
there,
are like,
Mr. Bidet? I'm looking at your brain.
I am brilliant. I've done my work.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm done here.
On December 16th, the jury found Sam Shepard guilty of the second-degree murder of his wife, Marilyn. Shepard received life in prison with the possibility of parole after 10 years, but the damage reverberated far beyond his sentence. Shepard's mother died by suicide just a few weeks later. His father passed away just days after that, and several years later, Marilyn's father would also die by suicide in 1963.
Okay, so there's, consequences to locking up the wrong person I get it. Look, I learned my lesson.
That's kind of why I was going on the do your job bit.
Well, you have the luxury of knowing where this little weird garden path ends up.
I still think generally you should do your job.
Within reason.
Not within reason. You do your job. Stop saying within
Shouldn't
reason.
kill you. I mean, don't be working nights and weekends.
No, what I said was when you step in between work hours, you do your job.
Okay, now that I respect.
That's what I said at the beginning.
Okay, I thought you were saying like stay till 7:30 p.m.
No.
That's dinner time.
But this was only Shepard's first trial. His brothers continued to support him even after the devastating toll the trial had on their family. They hired a forensic scientist, Dr. Paul Leland Kirk, to review the state's physical evidence because Coroner Gerber had not introduced any fingerprint or blood evidence that could have exonerated their brother. Gerber had decided shortly after he arrived at the scene that Sam was guilty, telling another detective, quote, "It's obvious that the doctor did it," end quote. In 1961, Shepard's brothers hired a new attorney, F. Lee Bailey, who got the trial reopened on grounds that it was poorly managed by the presiding judge, Edward Blythen. Bailey argued that Judge Blythen denied Shepard's defense motion to move the trial out of Cleveland, where there was no chance of a fair trial due to the biased press coverage, because he was seeking re-election, and used the spectacle for his own gain.
You're this man.
I am this man.
You're a doctor. Ryan Bugara is a doctor.
Look at me, Ryan, be a doctor.
You've murdered your wife.
Oh.
Would your brother, Jake, nice guy.
Can we go back to the doctor part just for
You're a
second?
doctor.
What does my diploma look like?
I don't know, but it's spattered with blood.
Is it framed nicely? Where is it in my den?
Yeah, it's in your den.
Sick. Okay, go back to go.
Next to your wife's bleeding body.
Okay. Ugh.
Because you've murdered her.
Jesus Christ. I didn't murder her though.
Didn't you?
I didn't.
I don't care. I got him there.
You're such a fucking idiot.
We got him there.
Popular syndicated columnist Dorothy Kilgallen, who covered the original trial, confessed years later that she had an unethical private conversation with Judge Blythen, in which he told her he saw the case as, quote, open and shut, end quote, and, quote, he's guilty as hell, end quote. Had she reported this at the time, Blythen would have been removed from the case.
Sounds like a person who should be presiding over this murder case.
Yeah, very unbiased judge.
The most unjudgely thing I've ever heard, the most unhonorable thing I've ever heard. That's crazy.
Shouldn't be doing that as a judge.
You
yeah, I think you should go in there and hear him out, at the very least.
He's the guy that's like, we got Applebee's in 12.
Yeah, he's me.
We gotta get out of here. That dude's guilty as hell. I got
he's
some
me
potato.
as a judge.
Yeah, that's Shane Madej as a judge.
By July 15th, 1964, Bailey's petition that Judge Blythen failed to shield the jury from media, making them biased, was granted. The court called Shepard's trial a, quote, mockery of justice, end quote, and ordered his release. Shepard's retrial began on October 24th, 1966. Once on the stand, Forensic scientist Dr. Kirk analyzed that the blood splatter would have covered the murderer in the victim's blood, but Sam only had one spot on his pants. Kirk also determined that much of the splatter came from the backswing of the weapon, indicating the murderer had used their left hand, but Sam was right-handed. He also noted that Marilyn's teeth were found underneath her body, meaning that she had likely broken them while biting her attacker. Sam had no bite marks or open wounds when he was examined at the hospital. But the most damning evidence was when Kirk revealed the largest blood spot found on the closet door didn't match Marilyn or Sam's, so was likely from a third party entirely.
Forensic science is crazy to me.
Yeah. Also not fun. I know people have a passion for these things, but gosh, imagine going home and being like, well, how's your day? How was my day? I don't know. It was great. I found some teeth under a lady.
Yeah, or I covered a knife in fake blood and I went like this to see where it would fly.
That actually sounds pretty fun. You know, they leave bodies decomposing out in the field. That's how they know. I mean, it's fascinating stuff. They leave bodies out and they just let them decompose, and based on how those look after a certain, that's how they like date how long bodies have been decomposing. Isn't that incredible?
Didn't you say you wanted your body to be left in the field when you die?
It's called a sky burial, and I want the vultures to eat me.
I still think dropping you out of a plane and seeing where you land is funnier,
That's
but
funny too. Do whatever the hell you want.
just me at a red light trying to change the radio station, just
Yeah, sure.
right on the roof of my
Yeah,
car.
yeah.
Holy shit!
It's a noodle man.
Which leads us to our second theory. Our second theory is that Sam Shepard was telling the truth, and his wife was murdered by a, quote, bushy-haired white form, end quote. Beyond Sam's statement, as many as 3 witnesses testified to seeing someone matching that description. Richard and Betty Knitter told the police they saw such a man near the Shepards' home around 3:30 to 4 o'clock a.m. on the morning of the murder, which lines up with Marilyn's time of death at around 4:30 a.m.
Just really quickly, I don't know why it didn't occur to me till now. What are Richard and Betty Knitter doing up at 3:30 and 4 o'clock in the morning? They have the presence of mind while doing that to look out the window.
Maybe they're freaks, man.
It looks like a bushy-haired white form.
Maybe they're like freaks.
Or they're like
Maybe they're
against
like-
the window,
Yeah,
and they're
yeah,
like,
yeah,
look
that's
at
what
the
I'm
neighborhood,
saying. Yeah,
look at
yeah,
the neighborhood
yeah,
while
yeah.
we do it. Who's that guy? I don't know. And just right back to sweat time.
Wrinkle, wrinkle, wrinkle. You know what I'm talking about? I'm talking about sex.
I just know from my own personal experience, when I hear a bump in the night, my immediate reaction is not to go to the window.
ooh,
No, what happens is...
phantom has entered my home.
Yeah, that's exactly what I talked exactly like that.
Boop, boop, boop. Hello, is this 911?
And I have a cartoon phone, too.
The devil is here. Send God.
They described him as, quote, white, between 32 and 42 years of age, wide nose, bushy crew-cut hair, light auburn in color, bushy eyebrows, long sideburns, end quote. This was enough detail to provide a forensic sketch.
Sounds like Kramer.
No, nor do
If
I.
that's the last face I saw before leaving this earthly coil, I wouldn't like it.
The presence of the bushy-haired man was substantiated in Shepard's first trial by medical professionals who attested to the seriousness of the injuries he sustained fighting Marilyn's attacker. A nurse testified that Sam's, quote, feet were all shriveled up, as if they had been in water a long time, end quote, consistent with Sam's story that he got knocked out on the shore. A radiologist said Sam's x-ray revealed a probable fracture of his second cervical vertebra. 2 other doctors said there was no way to fake his neck spasms or the swelling at the base of his skull.
Yeah, it's not like he could have committed to the craft, knocked himself out in the back of the head, and then put his feet in a bucket of water or something like that.
I mean, he could have knocked himself out by the lake, but
That feels like an insane amount
it's too much.
But it was Sam Shepard's son, Chip, who would provide a name to a bushy-haired face. He had spent years trying to solve his mother's murder, and he believed that the blood belonged to Richard Eberling. Richard Eberling had been the Shepard's handyman for a time, and had intimate knowledge of the house's layout, including an obscure basement entrance. Additionally, he had been found in possession of 2 stolen cocktail rings that had belonged to Marilyn Shepard. However, when questioned about the murder, he passed a polygraph test where he denied killing Marilyn, which cleared him of being investigated further.
Polygraphs are stupid.
Baloney.
Yeah. Do we need to say anything more about that?
No, they're bullshit.
Also, he had 2 rings that were stolen. I'm not saying that every time somebody in the house steals something, they're a murderer, but it doesn't look great.
No. I stole a little Lego man from one of my friends growing up. Didn't murder him.
Yeah.
Despite being cleared, in 1989, Eberling was convicted of the aggravated murder of Ethel May Durkin. 9 years into his sentence, Eberling gave a deathbed confession that he had also killed Marilyn Shepard. One witness testified, quote, Eberling told me that he had killed her and that he hit her husband on the head with a pail, and that in Eberling's words, the bitch bit the hell out of me, end quote.
As much as like infidelity and petty theft don't necessarily, equate, well, this person is morally bankrupt enough to commit a murder. I would argue that committing a different murder
Probably equates to committing another murder.
I think you have it in you at that point to maybe murder someone else.
I agree with that analysis.
Case closed. Lock him up. Oh, I guess he's dead.
He's dead.
Put a skeleton in jail. Do they have like a special graveyard for murderers?
I don't think they do. That's an interesting thought, though. Like, what do you...
It's a cool idea. Start a GoFundMe.
Skeleton jail.
But was Richard Eberling telling the truth? Besides the main theories, there were two other suspects that raised some questions. The first one was Esther Hoke. F. Lee Bailey believed that the murder of Marilyn Shepard could have only been perpetuated by another woman. There were rumors that Marilyn was having an affair with Esther's husband Spencer, the mayor, and the first person Sam called that fateful morning. Bailey said of Hoke's motive and means, quote, one possible motive is feminine jealous hatred, sparked to action by some event disturbing to the killer. A jealous killing requires a woman killer, end quote.
Well, everyone knows a jealous killing requires a woman killer.
Everybody knows that. Trust me, I'm a doctor.
Trust me, I'm a man.
During the retrial, Bailey got Esther to admit she had ignited her coal fireplace the morning of the murder, despite the fact that it had been a warm summer evening. He implied she might have been trying to burn bloody clothes and other evidence, and also that she was left-handed, like the killer. However, there was no evidence to prove Spencer and Marilyn had an intimate sexual relationship, and seemingly, no further legal action was ever taken against the Hokes.
I'm tired of this. What is this guy talking about?
This seems like a flailing, especially when it's preceded by the handyman. This seems kind of out of left field.
The second suspect was Major James Call. Ex-FBI agent Bernard Connors believed that Marilyn was murdered by Major James Call, an Air Force pilot who went AWOL in 1954 to embark on a murderous crime spree. Connors said the Shepard murder fits with Call's MO, in which he would break into a house of sleeping people and use violence against anyone he came across. A small crowbar found in Call's possession could have been used to cause Marilyn's injuries. Even more compelling, Marilyn likely bit her attacker, and Call had a scar that seemed to be from a deep bite mark on his left index finger. When they captured Call, they questioned him about Marilyn's murder, but never pursued the link.
Where's this guy coming from? I don't know about this man. Who is this man?
I think this is kind of common in most of these these murder cases.
Where they try to link it to a notorious killer?
Serial killer. It just seems like, if not for the sensationalized aspect of it, it's an easy theory to posit.
Can I be honest with you? This man sounds scary.
Obviously, this man's a murderer. I don't know if he's the murderer for this case.
Maybe not our murderer, but a murderer.
This sounds kind of like when you're asked to give like a quarterly report to your business and you have to have a certain amount of figures to make it look like you were doing a good job. So as a detective, you need a certain amount of theories and you just pad it with this.
You pad
it. You pad your stats a little bit.
Yeah, you're making your essay look a little more
exactly
up in the font size.
You're up in the font size of periods.
Yes.
That's what this person's doing.
Is that what people do, the periods?
I used to do it all the time.
Just fat circles in the middle.
They would never know. It was enough. It was enough.
And now he solves crimes.
But whether it was Hook, Call, Eberling, or simply just not Shepard, reasonable doubt was all they had to prove.
I would say case closed in that aspect. Reasonable doubt has been proven in my mind that he did not do it.
I agree. And he spent roughly a decade in jail. So I thought I had to sneeze.
I thought you were getting choked up for a second.
Oh, no.
I was like, this is what does it?
All because some lazy judge.
Also, I mean, like, even without the judge, your spouse gets murdered, you're suspect number one. That's just how the game goes. If it wasn't for that judge...
Keep an eye on your spouses.
Make sure they
Look
don't
out for them.
That's Shane Madej's disclaimer. Make sure your spouse does not get murdered at all costs.
You should. That's part of the deal.
And in June 1966, the Supreme Court ruled that Shepard did not get a fair trial in an 8-1 vote. Shepard was acquitted. His innocence, however, remains in question. The last years of Shepard's life were not necessarily happy ones. Following his release, he married a German woman who he had exchanged letters with while in prison. It was later discovered that her half-sister was the wife of Joseph Goebbels, Adolf Hitler's propaganda minister.
Wait, what?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Not good. I mean, half-sister, so maybe fine. We've all got weird cousins and...
I mean, it doesn't mean that she's a bad person.
That's right. Like, we got bad apples in our families. I'm sure they're out there.
Like, if my brother went on a murder spree, I'm not a murderer.
No, you're a nice guy.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
I think you're a nice guy, too.
Also, for the record, I don't think Jake would go on a murder spree.
And I don't think Scott would go on a murder spree.
We have great brothers.
What about us? Would you go on a murder spree?
No, I wouldn't go on a murder spree.
Neither would I.
Okay, so we're good.
Shepard had his medical license reinstated, then soon revoked after 2 patients died in surgery. His German bride divorced him, and he became a professional wrestler, working under the name Killer.
I'm happy for him.
I will normally
it's
not...
cool that he became a wrestler. I think that kind of makes up for it.
You think that's a normal pivot you see? Neurosurgeon to wrestler? How many neurosurgeons...
It's not normal. That's why I kind of applaud it. You don't become a wrestler because you don't love wrestling.
I suppose, but to me it's as weird as if you became a pro wrestler after we do this.
Now I kind of want to see a sequel to The Fugitive.
Holy shit, man.
He also ended up marrying the 19-year-old daughter of his wrestling manager. At 46 years old, he died from liver failure after many years of alcohol abuse and depression.
It's certainly one of the stranger 6-year arcs I've ever seen. It's a sad arc that has weird, interesting details in it.
While not guilty, Sam Shepard was never really proven innocent. The court of public opinion, bolstered by the ongoing media frenzy surrounding his wife's murder, made finding the truth impossible. Shepard's release was more about the mismanagement of the trial rather than the actual evidence in his defense. But one thing is for certain. In the early morning hours of the 4th of July, 1954, Marilyn Shepard was brutally murdered. And the truth of who killed her will remain unsolved.
What a doozy. Good one, Ryan.
It's crazy. That is an important thing to note. As crazy as the circus was that surrounded Sam Shepard, lost in it sometimes is the fact that Marilyn Shepard was murdered. Obviously, that's a tragedy. And tacking on to that, it's a tragedy what happened to Sam Shepard if he in fact did not do it.
Yeah.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cling on to the memory of him being a pro wrestler.
I was gonna
say, because it makes me happy.
All of these stories are awful and miserable, and I walk away from them feeling sad, and I don't enjoy hearing them. But the one thing we can hang on to is that maybe he loved being a wrestler.
Maybe in his last days, he enjoyed giving a nice elbow.
Yeah. So, hey, I'm walking away with that, and no one can take it away from me.
I'm fine with that. This week, for the season finale of BuzzFeed Unsolved True Crime, and in celebration of our 100th episode, we pay respect to our own history by revisiting the first case we ever covered, the Somerton Man.
100 episodes.
That's right.
What a journey.
100.
Yeah.
The century mark
Yeah.
of dusting off old cases. And this is the first case.
It is, and one that I was not here for, one that I was deeply fascinated with even before this show began, so I'm very excited to hear it now.
The first time we looked at this case, Brent was still alive, and, we didn't really go over the case in the way that we traditionally do in this show.
True.
We didn't really present any theories. It was very much a brief look at it. We're gonna take a little bit more of a robust look at the case at large, go into some theories, and try and crack open this cold case with a little bit more, I guess, of what the hell is this? Magnifying glass?
Yes. So this will be a more thorough up and down.
Okay, let's get into it.
On December 1st, 1948, 16-year-old Neil Day was riding horses with a friend along Somerton Beach in Adelaide, Australia.
I didn't want to jump into the story this quickly, but I did want to say it sounds fun to ride horses on the beach with a friend.
I rode a horse one time, I think it was in Hawaii. I had a horse whose nickname was Crazy. That was actually his name. And then he went rogue and then tried to buck me off and ran into a little creek.
What happened to you?
I'd like to think I survived.
Uh-oh. What if I just started fading away right now? What if your world just started dissolving into vapor?
Oh, like I was being hypnotized by Mysterio?
Yeah, you're Bruce Willis at the end of The Sixth Sense, and like it all just... Wait a minute.
It just cuts to a montage of a bunch of times where it's obvious I've been
suddenly
dead.
remember all of my bones breaking.
My mother screams.
Your mother was with you?
Yes.
When they passed the body of a man lying in the sand, the friends didn't pay much attention, thinking the man was simply napping on the beach. When they came back to find the man in the exact same position, they discovered he was actually dead. The man was clean-shaven, wearing a dry and neatly pressed suit and tie. Oddly, all of the tags of his clothes had been removed, and he was found with no belongings or form of identification. His fingerprints were not in any database, and no one came forward to identify the man.
Spy. Probably.
Why do you immediately go spy?
Well, I don't know. How robust are fingerprint databases at this point? Like nowadays, they get everybody's little fingerprints when they're a baby?
In the first episode, I actually posited I believed that every baby was fingerprinted when they were born, and therefore their fingerprints were in a database. I don't know if that's actually in place now. Either way, I don't know if they did that to this man. Obviously, they didn't because there was no identifying marks. Or he had them burned off like that machine they have in Men in Black.
Men in Black.
Which always looks so goddamn painful.
I feel like we've referenced that on this show before,
We have.
but hey, 100th episode, no rules.
Callback, baby. My mom also
what
said that the scanner thing at the grocery store, she said if I put my fingers on it, it would erase my
Your
fingerprints.
mom's funny as hell.
She once took a wig, put it hanging out of the washing machine, and told me my mom had been abducted and that my real mom was stuck in the washing machine and I could go look for proof. And then she showed me the washing machine and I saw the wig sticking out and I cried.
Your mom's the funniest lady I've ever met.
A post-mortem revealed the man had a strikingly enlarged spleen and internal bleeding in his stomach and liver. There were no indications of violence and no traces of poison. Symptoms of poisoning such as vomiting, diarrhea, or convulsions were also not present. The coroner also found a pasty in his stomach. In the official publication of the investigation, the coroner wrote, quote, "I am unable to say who the deceased was. I am unable to say how he died or what was the cause of death," end quote.
I wouldn't say this guy blew it. He's examining an alien spy corpse.
You think it's an alien? Is that one of the theories?
No, it's not, but I'm just saying it's a very, I can't think straight. I'm gonna take this off because
Are you toasty?
it's season
Why are you
finale.
wearing this?
I don't know. Season finale, I could do what I want, I suppose.
I've never even been back there.
You haven't? Have you ever left that chair?
No. They turned the lights out and I remain.
Like an animatronic?
So he is a bad coroner. Whatever. I
don't know if
he's got nothing to go off of.
He was dealt pretty bad cards.
Yeah.
In January 1949, a month after the body was found, a suitcase was uncovered in the cloakroom of the Adelaide railway station. The suitcase, dropped off the day before the body was found, contained, among other odds and ends, clothing with the labels removed, and a waxed thread not sold in Australia, but of the type used to repair the trousers found on the body. Many of these objects indicated that the man, whoever he was, had recently been in the United States. The name Keene, ending in E, and Keene, ending in N, were found on some of the items. According to an Adelaide newspaper, authorities concluded the name Keene had been left on the belongings to intentionally obscure the man's true identity.
Look, I'm not a spy. I have never
Don't
been.
need to disclaim that.
I'm
Everyone
not a
knows
spy.
that.
Perhaps the easier way to obscure the identity would be to not put any names on anything.
Could you imagine your gangly ass chasing down another spy through a railway station?
I could do it.
How ridiculous that would
I
look.
could do it. I'd be like Jaws from
Your feet
from the
bounding
Bond
over little children's
films.
heads. It's amazing.
I could do that. I'm very fast.
You fell while walking.
I
And
was
Griffith-
running.
And you also fell while walking.
There was a big rock, and I walked into it.
So
We don't need
anytime
to
there's
get
any
into it.
element that's in the
That's
your
the-
pathway.
For the record, that's the only time I've fallen in my life. How many bones have you broken, dipshit?
0.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Hey, I mean, We never broken any bones.
In April 1949, police came upon a mysterious clue that had been overlooked in the 4+ months since the body was found. Sewn into the waistband of the man's pants was a secret pocket, which contained a tightly rolled piece of paper with the Persian words Tamam Shud typed on it. The paper appeared to be torn from an 11th century book of Persian poems, the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, or simply the Rubaiyat. Themes of the Rubaiyat center around life's transience, and in English, Tamam Shud roughly translates to the end or finished. The discovery of the secret pocket and its haunting message was enough for Coroner Thomas Cleland to declare the man's death was, quote, not natural, end quote. This Tamam Shud thing should shed some light on this situation.
I love it.
What do you think about that? A secret pocket and a secret little note from a rare book.
So, I love that whoever is responsible for this, whether it be the corpse itself or someone who murdered this person, they really could have had a successful job in the current era as like an ARG advertising agent. You ever get sucked down one of those rabbit holes?
I mean, sure.
You like fun. ARGs? Alternate reality games?
Sure, man.
Movies coming out, you send some videos out on the internet, get people, what's going on here? What's going on here? Oh, there's a new Fast and the Furious film?
How about instead of talking about alternate reality, we talk about reality?
I don't care for it.
I'm surprised at you, to be quite honest, because you were a big fan of spy tales. I'm serving you one up on a platter here.
I'm still enjoying the story.
Yes.
What do you want from me?
I don't know. Just like maybe
Yahoo!
Maybe some insight into what it may mean.
We don't know.
But
it's a
we
book.
never know.
I know.
We're 100 episodes.
On July 23rd, 3 months after police discovered the Tamam Shud paper, a businessman who had read about the unidentified body in the paper came to police with a copy of the Rubaiyat. The man claimed that he found the book in the backseat of his car after parking it near Somerton Beach with the windows down. Sure enough, a section had been torn out of the last page of the book that perfectly fit the piece found in the unknown man's pants. On the back cover of the book, police discovered 5 lines of letters, apparently a secret code, and what appeared to be a phone number. To this day, the code has never been cracked, and the Australian Navy determined it to be virtually unbreakable, explaining, quote, there is an insufficient number of letters for definite conclusions to be based on analysis. The letters do not constitute any kind of simple cipher or code. A reasonable explanation would be that the lines are the initial letters of words of a verse of poetry or such like, end quote.
Yeah, no, I got nothing. It's a bunch of letters.
You know, I actually, when we first covered this case, I did pore over this code for a bit, and I don't have any code cracking capability, so I looked at it for probably a good hour, strained my little eyeballs, and was like, mysterious.
While the code failed to yield any new leads, the phone number found in the back of the Rubaiyat led investigators to 27-year-old nurse Jessie Jo Thompson's doorstep, just hundreds of meters from where the body was found 8 months prior. Thompson admitted to once owning a copy of the Rubaiyat, but claimed she'd given the copy to a man named Alfred Boxall. Upon investigation, Boxall turned out to still be alive and in possession of a fully intact copy of the Rubaiyat. By this time, the still anonymous body had been buried, but not before a plaster cast had been made for investigative purposes. According to Detective Sergeant Lionel Lean, when Jo Thompson was shown the cast in the hopes of identifying it, she looked like she was about to faint. Nevertheless, Thompson denied knowing the man. Thompson died in 2007, still claiming she did not know the man found on the beach.
Lots to unpack there.
Yeah. The book thing is a bit of an enigma, obviously.
How many people have a copy of this book?
Maybe it's a page turner.
I
don't
guess
know.
so. What's interesting to me is that Jo Thompson clearly recognizes this person. No one sees a picture of a person, faints, gets back up and goes, I don't know that person.
Well, she was shown a cast of a dead man's face. I don't know. Maybe she's got some hang-ups, man. Perfectly normal. I don't think she's suspicious.
With an unnamed dead body, an 11th century book of Persian poems, and an uncrackable code, it's time to lay out some theories surrounding what happened to the Somerton Man. Our first theory is that the Somerton Man was responsible for his own death and killed himself. This could mean he put the paper reading Tamam should in his own pocket to be found as a sort of suicide note. Supporting this theory are the similar elements of another suicide, that of immigrant George Marshall. In June 1945, Marshall was found dead in Mosman, Australia, after poisoning himself with barbiturates. With his corpse was another copy of the Rubaiyat. While another dead man turning up in Australia with the same collection of Persian poems may sound like too large of a coincidence to overlook, the Rubaiyat apparently had become quite popular in Australia during World War II. Since the work deals with life and mortality, it's possible both men could have had similar inspiration to have at least a piece of the book with them during their final moments.
Hey, hang on. Has anybody else read this book? And are they still living? Because what if it's a ring?
Oh, like 7 days.
Like a ring situation. I don't remember much from it, except that when you watch the VHS tape,
You get a call saying you're going to die in 7 days. So in this case,
and this is, that's our entirely plausible scenario that anyone who reads this book
let's take that back.
dies on a beach.
What do you think about this theory at large, though?
Possible if he was it's weird to explain the fingerprints, obviously.
Or maybe he'd been compromised. He knew it was coming to an end because he is a spy, and he figured just take control of the situation. Maybe I could see that. I don't know. I don't know if this is the strongest theory to me.
Yeah.
Our next theory is that the man was murdered by Russian spies. The body was found at the dawn of the Cold War, and paranoia about Soviet spies loomed large. A few months before the discovery of the corpse, a Soviet embassy spy ring had been uncovered in Canberra, Australia. A statement given in 1959 by a man who was on Somerton Beach the night the unidentified man died claims to have seen, quote, a man carrying another on his shoulder near the water's edge, end quote. In 2013, a theory came out that Jo Thompson, the woman whose phone number was found in the back of that copy of the Rubaiyat, may have been a Soviet spy. The woman who publicly suggested this theory was none other than Kate Thompson, Jo Thompson's daughter. In a 60 Minutes interview, Kate Thompson said her mother had, quote, a dark side, a very strong dark side. She said to me she knew who he was, but she wasn't going to let that out of the bag, so to speak. There's always that fear that I've thought that maybe she was responsible for his death, end quote.
Yeah, that would be hard to wrap my head around. Though my mom did pretend that she was abducted by
But your
aliens.
mom's not a murderer.
My mom
I've
is
met
not
her.
a-
If your mom's a murderer, she's the nicest murderer I've ever met.
Yeah, she's a regular Norman Bates. Everyone thought he was the nicest guy.
They shouldn't have, though. That guy was a creep.
Yeah, I always thought that was
They were like,
interesting.
what a sweet man. He's got so many stuffed birds.
There was a bunch of red flags in the first act of that film.
Love the way how he doesn't blink. What a sweet guy.
I love how he smiles in moments where it doesn't make sense to smile.
According to Kate, she would hear her mother speaking in rushed, quieted Russian to someone over the phone. Her mother had also mentioned she was teaching English to newly arrived immigrants from Russia. Kate remembered her mother at one point saying something along the lines of, quote, oh, I can still understand Russian, end quote, though she never mentioned where she learned it.
Hang on a second. Do you think that her mother went to the same school of mothering as your mother?
I see that her mother's playing a little funny prank.
What's the funniest thing to do in the world if you have kids? I mean, kids are a lot of work, I imagine.
Trick them into thinking you are a spy.
Yeah.
Or
That's the funniest shit in the world.
trick them into thinking you're an alien. Same train of thought.
That's exactly right. Either this woman is a spy or one of the funniest mothers I've ever heard of.
It's possible. You know what? I would say that seems impossible until I realized my own mother did that to me. So then maybe she is just playing a funny little gag.
Sounds like that's one funny mummy.
Oh my God.
If the Somerton Man met his end thanks to Russian spies, whether Jo Thompson was involved or not, there's also the question as to how he died. At the time, a well-known professor, Sir Cedric Stanton Hicks, proposed that the man had indeed been poisoned, but with an extremely rare variety, which would decompose soon after death. This would of course explain the absence of poison found in the corpse. In court, Hicks refused to say the name of the poisons he was referring to aloud, believing they were too dangerous. Sir Hicks did, however, write 2 types of poison down on paper and gave it to the coroner, digitalis and strophanthin.
Yeah, you're just reading it aloud? All right, we blew it. Never mind. Here's the poison you can use.
Digitalis. He really turned the corner on that one quick.
It should be noted that Joe Thompson worked as a nurse and perhaps could have known about and had access to some rarer poisons such as those written down by Hicks. While spies might explain the mysterious code in the back of the Rubaiyat, there is admittedly no physical evidence Joe Thompson was ever involved with Russians in any capacity, much less associated with espionage. Still, one could always argue this only means Thompson was a very good spy.
You can't get away from the fact that her number was written in the back of the book that was linked to the dude.
That makes me think she was not a very good spy. Oops, left
Yeah,
my
I
book
mean,
out there with my phone number in it. Probably not a good spy.
Can you think of anything worse to leave behind at a crime scene than your number?
You might as well leave your business card. Spy.
Or your
Here's my
confession
phone
note?
number. Yeah,
I did it. It is
not-
me. Or she just has very bad luck and somebody took no, I don't get, I can't get around the fact that her name is in the book that's linked to him. So be that as it may, I don't know.
Maybe he was peeping on her. He was like, pretty lady lives on the beach.
Or
Love to see a pretty lady on the beach.
Or maybe later we might talk about how they might have been romantically linked and he had her number written down. Maybe he was reading the Rubaiyat at a bar, strikes up a conversation with a lovely lady. She gives him her number. He writes it down in the book because that's what he has at the time. Maybe that's what it is.
Okay.
All right, maybe.
We cracked it.
Maybe she's not a spy. Maybe she just struck up a conversation.
She got a heart.
Our next theory is that the man was killed as the result of a romantic relationship gone awry. This is a relatively recent theory, and it comes thanks to the tireless work of University of Adelaide engineering professor Derek Abbott. Abbott discovered that about a year before the man's body turned up on Somerton Beach, Joe Thompson had given birth to a son named Robin Thompson. Robin grew up to be a professional ballet dancer, which meant it was easy for Abbott to track down photos of the man. Based on photos, Abbott found that Robin had a similar strange ear feature to the Somerton man. Additionally, both Robin and the man found on the beach were missing their incisor teeth, a genetically inherited trait. This information, along with the fact that Joe Thompson was unmarried the year Robin was born, led Abbott to conclude Joe and the Somerton man, quote, had a liaison together and she had Robin, end quote. By the time Abbott made this connection, Robin had already died. However, Abbott was able to track down one Rachel Egan, the biological daughter of Robin Thompson, who was living in Queensland. In what might be the craziest reveal in a story full of strange twists, Abbott and Egan eventually fell in love and got married.
Oh, I love it. That's sweet.
That's crazy. That's something that's never happened in the show before. The person who's theorizing about a case meets one of the people he's theorizing about and then falls in love with that person.
I love it.
One thing that just crossed my mind is not that, but people ask you all the time how you met your significant other.
Uh-huh.
Can you imagine?
That's pretty good.
Also, what do you think about, first off, Joe Thompson having the son Robin who bears a resemblance to the mystery man?
I think, yeah, I'll buy it. I'm there.
Because that will fit my thing that I was saying earlier about the number being something that he scribbled down in a book when he met her at a bar or something like that.
I've never met anyone who didn't have incisors. You know, I don't walk up to everyone and inspect their mouth like a horse.
That's what my dad does.
In late 2018, while inspecting the original plastic cast police made of the body, the same one that allegedly made his grandmother-in-law nearly faint, Abbott found 3 hairs, which he believes could contain DNA evidence of a genetic link to his wife. If the Somerton man was her son's dead father, that could explain Joe Thompson's near fainting upon seeing the plaster cast. While the hairs Abbott discovered may not be able to provide a conclusive answer, it is the most promising lead in the case so far. even if Professor Abbott is able to prove his wife's relationship to the Somerton man, many questions remain unanswered, such as who he was, how he was killed, and why he was left dead on the beach. Joe Thompson or another man, for instance, the one spotted carrying a body on the beach, could have been angry at the Somerton man for not taking responsibility for the child that resulted from his love affair. Or perhaps Joe Thompson, the dead man, or even both, were spies and weren't supposed to get involved in a relationship. If the man was Robin Thompson's father and Rachel Egan's grandfather, perhaps the biggest question of all is, why was Joe Thompson so unwilling to identify the body?
It feels like we have a little piece of this puzzle, enough that I'm satisfied. Sure, there's a mystery, but out of that mystery was born love.
Are you the type of guy that gets like 75% done with a jigsaw puzzle and go, that's enough, I could kind of see the picture?
I get it. Yeah.
Kind of looks like the box. We could walk away from this,
I mean,
right?
you're never going to finish the whole thing anyway. This
I'm gonna
one's
go-
like usually a piece missing or something. Most frustrating thing in the world. Why bother?
Yeah, whatever.
It's been over 71 years since two friends riding horses along the Australian beach came upon a dead man lying in the sand. Despite decades of effort and no shortage of cryptic clues, the man's identity, his killer's identity, and the way the man died are all still unknown. Perhaps new DNA evidence and the steady march of time will finally provide some answers to the many questions surrounding this case. But for now, the mystery of the Somerton man remains unsolved.
I feel like both he and Joe Thompson may have been spies,
Yeah, that'd be cool.
and that is the reason why she could not say the identity of the man, because it would both compromise her and him and their resulting family. That is
Yeah.
my theory, and I'm sticking to it.
I mean, it's highly probable because spies, it's probably easier to love another spy.
Here's a question at large that encompasses the whole series. If you, Shane Madej, disappeared under mysterious circumstances, or you died and we didn't know how it happened, would you want people to know how it happened?
No.
Not for your loved ones?
I'd prefer that they knew what happened, but I'm going to tell them right now, don't worry about it. Obviously, as a living person, I care about my loved ones. I want them to be safe. If I disappear, if I'm still alive, I'll pop out there eventually. I'll show up somewhere and be like, hey, here I am. Sorry about that.
Just chilling in Costa Rica, sucking on coconuts.
But if I disappear for sure and you don't see me, I'm dead, 100%. Don't worry about it.
All right.
Maybe I got that sky burial I've always been hoping for. What about you?
Of course I'd want people to know what happened to me, not for me, but because it would drive, I know, my mom insane to not know what happened.
Yeah, of course it'd be tough for the loved ones, and I sympathize. It's not on me to look into your disappearance, though, right?
I would hope you would.
I'm not qualified.
I'd look into your disappearance.
Very kind of you. Huge waste of time.
Well, that does it for this season. I guess we'll see you guys for some ghost hunting in Supernatural.
Another incredible season of many, many questions and zero answers.
Another season of mysteries.
Yeah.
Oh, almost forgot my coat.